Hey there! Welcome to Season 2 of The Artist in Me is Dead podcast. I'm your host, Rhonda Willers. I'm so excited to share conversations with creatives from a multitude of disciplines this season. This first episode features a conversation with Pam Kravetz. In her own words, she is a mural making, street painting, quilt sewing, yarnbombin, curatin, flashmobin, tutu wearing, rootin tootin art monster. Pam is the epitome of come join me for all the fun. She is based in Cincinnati, Ohio, where May 21st is officially Pam Kravetz Day. And after our conversation, I'm sure you'll understand why she is celebrated not only by her city, but also by anyone who meets her. She is an advocate and empowers those around her. She did this throughout her K-12 teaching career, and she continues to do so through her collaborative art-making process known as Pam Co. Please enjoy this first episode of Season 2 with Pam Kravetz. All right, Pam, here we go.
Okay.
Thank you for coming today and having this chat with me. I'm so excited.
Rhonda, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
I feel so lucky to have met you and crossed paths with you through NCECA. And I know you and I say this to each other a lot, but I mean it so deeply and genuinely that your humanity and the way that you bring others with you in your excitement and joy is just like beautiful and inspiring. And the way that you are, I know I shared this with you another time too, but just like, I feel like you're the ultimate, like, come with me, come join me person.
I love that.
Like that just, it's like that you just make people feel at ease with joining you and having that sort of like liberated self experience with you. And that's so beautiful to see.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I love that. It is super important to me. And then the other thing is like, I think part of it is like, I don't like to be alone. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, if I don't bring people with me, then I got to go by myself. So that's no fun. like I used to even call like my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, I got to go to, go grocery shopping. You want to join me? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
But I feel like that is, that's one of my superpowers. I feel that I get to do very joyful things and very cool things and very interesting things. And I think just in the playfulness or the way I invite makes people feel super welcome. And
Yes.
I love that because I benefit from that even more than they do.
Yeah.
So but thanks for noticing that and kind of articulating that in a way that I've not quite thought about it. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Also, I love that you invited people to go grocery shopping with you because it makes me think of when my children were really young. I had a friend who we met when we were pregnant, and I did a really weird thing where I was like, she worked at our local bank, and I slipped her a note basically under the window and said, hey, this is my number if you want to get together.
Right.
Like I had seen her enough times where I'm like, okay, maybe.
Yeah.
And we had fries and like, then she had her baby and then I had my baby a few weeks later. And then we went to like Target together and we would call each other and be like, are you going to go to Target on Saturday? Let's get diapers. And like, she was
Right.
like the shopping companion. And it was so good to have
I
someone.
think, don't you feel that's different though, us both being artists? Like a lot of artists like that, that what do you call it? That quiet time or that.
Yes.
I am not like that. I don't
Yeah.
need that quiet time. I don't. I want the interaction.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're the same way. The way that
Mhm.
I've watched you interact and the beauty and the gift that you give all of us just when we're around you.
Aw,
Yay! You feel the best.
well, Pam. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Well, okay, so for today, what I want to know is kind of how you came to this like full version of yourself. And like I know we're always still growing and belonging or becoming who we are, but what were you like as a kid and like how did you come to art and like can you tell us a bit about that part of your life?
Sure. Okay. All right. So I'll try to do the Reader's Digest version because I'm super old. And if we're going all the way back to kindergarten, which is where we're going,
Yes.
it's going to be a while. So actually, it started when I was 3 and I was taking dance classes with my perfect older sister. Beautiful, curly hair, elegant. I was a rat in the Nutcracker, and she was, of course, like a duet and all the things that kind of spoke volumes, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of already didn't fit into the girly thing that I wanted to be. I really did. I'm like, that was to me who I wanted to be like. And went to kindergarten. My parents have told me that I was a really unhappy child, which I didn't realize. And I was just always kind of mopey and sad. And actually, one of my songs is kind of about that we'll talk about later. I bet you could probably guess which one.
I think so.
But so go to kindergarten. Super struggle with ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. I was so lucky. This was in the 60s that my kindergarten teacher didn't, philosophy wise, back then and even recently, that if you're not good at something, we're going to make you do it more. And we're going to beat you over the head with it, and we're going to really work. She was not like that. She saw right away that I was gravitating towards the easel, and she would let me paint on the easel every day, which made my heart happy, but I was not very popular with the other kids.
Because they wanted to be doing that too.
They wanted easel time, and they're like working on their, 1, 2, 3s and ABCs. Okay, then I got sent to the principal's office same year. My mom was super cool, and because it all feeds into the person.
Yeah, absolutely. No, take your time. No, this is good.
Well, you might want to get a cup of coffee. It's gonna be okay. So my mom sends us to school in go-go boots and a mini skirt. And this is 60s. And we're like cute, my sister and I, really cute. And I got sent to the principal's office like right when I walked in the door, and I'm like, cool, like the principal wants to meet me. How great is that? Because I always think that, like I always think, oh, yay, lucky them. And so I'm sitting in the principal's office, my little feet are like going like this, they're not touching the ground. I'm super excited to meet the principal. I meet the principal and I get sent home to change, dressed inappropriately. So those kind of things, I think, really, and we were talking about this prior to getting, recording started, that those things that happen to you so young or through your life, they're in you. It's like they're part of your DNA now. That part of who I was. So, fast forward through all the schooling, and again, super lucky that I struggled. I really struggled. I was the kid that was taken out for reading. I was the kid that was taken down the hall. I was all those things. And but I liked art. My 5th grade teacher, I remember we did Animal Farm, and because of course I didn't get any of that. I just got, it's about animals. Yay. So
I feel like I relate a lot on that one.
I'm like, wow, that pig's so fun. But so she let me do my book reports with visual arts. So and I just lucked out. Same thing with my family. They didn't get on me about not being able to do things. They really helped facilitate me doing what I loved.
Oh, wow.
And same thing through high school, really struggled through high school. But I was liked. I was well liked. I did the morning announcements, and I was in theater, and it was weird. I could remember lines back then. I can't remember anything. But but I always got like the funny roles. I was Winnie the Pooh and Winnie the Pooh. I was the Wicked Witch and Cinderella. I was all those kind of really fun roles. And I got caught cheating, and Steve Strickland, super cute, had a crush on him, and he was very good at math. I was in senior math. And I got taken to the
principal's like, not this
and they're like, what are you doing in senior math? I'm like, I don't know. I just thought, I was sort of like somebody that just kind of went with the wind. I didn't have a really good sense of purpose. And so they're like, well, didn't you just get a scholarship in ceramics? Why aren't you going to art school? And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that's what that's for. Maybe I should do that.
Oh my gosh.
But my grades were not so good that I couldn't get into DAA, the design school in Cincinnati. I had to take a year of
where you build up you show that you can learn in a college setting kind of thing, and then you can go. It
was weird because I was like, I totally did, it completely changed. Okay, so back step a little bit. My ceramics teacher in high school, Pam Hall, we're still friends. She again gave me this opportunity. It's like, and then the other teachers kind of saw that that's where I was gravitating, and they let me be in the ceramics studio all day. And and I still got my work done and all those things. But I feel like that's my give back to my students when I teach, and we'll share more. But okay, so go to college, and I'm in art school and everybody it's like the late 70s, early 80s. Everybody's into like dark charcoal drawings and really aggressive and
Mm-hmm.
very,
Serious,
emo-y.
cerebral,
Yeah,
emo. Yeah.
very. And I'm not, I'm like, yay, I get to make art all day. I remember I would go out because I was in a sorority and I would go out late at night and I'd fall asleep on the artist couch,
Uh-huh. In the
um,
studio kind of thing.
and
Every studio bag.
and Phil Foster weighed like 12 pounds and he had a glass eye and he was just amazing.
Uh,
But he would come and sit on me.
oh,
And he even told me, he's like, don't ever take my class again. I was, so I kind of like, I like the art.
yeah.
I like being in a sorority. I like the social part of that.
Yep.
And then I was also the mascot. I was the UC Bearcat mascot for 2 years.
Oh, Pam.
I know. And but this kind of goes back to like the go-go
Yeah.
boots and skirt kind of a
Yes.
thing, it's like
Totally.
the performative part of
Yes.
life, which I love. Okay, so the Bearcat mascot, in a sorority, in art school, all of those parts, like none of them fit,
Yeah.
but they fit together for me.
They're all connected. Like it's so beautiful because these are like the seeds of where you are today and what you do. And it's like so wonderful to hear. And then I can't wait because I'm like, oh, we're gonna get to this part because I can like see them like right there.
I mean, okay, so this is like the weirdest thing ever, but okay, so I'm up for homecoming queen because I was very active at school, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm up, but I'm not the traditional homecoming queen
Yeah.
girl.
The
And
stereotypical. Yeah.
not at all, not at all. And always wanted to be,
Yep.
but never was. And a lot of times people would say, "Oh, yeah, well, we just needed somebody with a good personality." I'm like, "Oh, okay, thank you."
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks. But so they had our pictures in the commons, and I was doing this whole like I was dressing, what do you call it? Gender neutral. I was
Sure.
well, I wasn't gender neutral. I was wearing like a suit and tie. I
Oh, so
thought,
like man style, like
yeah, man style.
menswear, what
Menswear,
menswear
like a
style.
men's
Yeah.
wear.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so somebody in my drawing class at this art school part, they came up to me like, "Oh my God, you're not gonna believe this. There is like this girl that looks just like you." And and she's up for homecoming queen. And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's weird, right? Like a doppelganger right here at school." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Isn't that weird?" And I'm like, "Well, no, it's actually me."
And why is it weird? Because like it was that era of like you're in art school, you shouldn't do
Yeah.
things that are mainstream, like
Yeah.
homecoming queen.
Yeah. It was like, but it all, it all made, I never made
Yeah.
it to the board. I never made it on, but I was the Bearcat, so I got to be on the field anyway. So
You
I
didn't
showed
really
that.
need the title in order to do that.
But I think like back then, those are all the
Yeah.
things really kind of finding out that art, like I could be supported through
Yeah.
my passion and my love.
Yeah.
And I can also be, I'm not as stereotypical, not that anybody is, that's a terrible
Right.
word, but I'm not like the traditional artist that likes the quiet. And like we said, it's
Yeah.
like, I want to be with people. I want to be around people. My
Mhm.
art, my life is about the world, my family and friends, and the community that I get to be part of. And that is what feeds my art. It feeds all my passions.
Yeah.
So, okay, then I go, okay, so, all
Okay,
right.
wait, though. I have one more
Okay,
question.
go,
I have a
yeah.
question for you though. So I want to know what your parents like, because it's
Oh.
interesting to have parents that were supportive in this way, in this era too, in particular. But what did your parents, what were their lives like that maybe contributed to understand, like really seeing you for
Yeah.
who you were and are and realizing like, let's foster that.
Okay. So, my mother passed away when I was very little,
Okay.
and my dad and my mother, they collected antiques forever. When, that was their passion. So I grew up with we had tiny little house, like a tiny little 2-bedroom house, and but there was antiques everywhere. And then when my mom passed away, and my dad married my stepmom, they continued that love and passion of antiques. And a lot of it was Chinese, Japanese, Korean, very different for a Jewish family. It was like very unusual. And I know I do believe in past lives and old souls and all that. And my dad 100% is. he was doing things, gosh, when I was little, like in the 60s and 70s, where he was studying Buddhism and Hinduism and things, and we would have books from India and we'd have books from China, and so I think that there was just this love of art. They didn't quite get my art though, to be honest.
Yeah.
Totally didn't. And we had 5 kids, so we
Mm.
couldn't afford to go to college, so we commuted.
Yep.
And I would bring my big drawings home, and I loved drawing
Mm.
nudes. I loved it. And I had twin little brother and sister, and my mom would just always say, could you just wait until the kids go to bed before you bring all that out? So there was definitely that love and support and of an understanding the arts. But when I said I wanted to major in art and not business, and that's why I was in senior math, my parents told me that I needed a career I could fall back on, and that was real estate. So I, my older sister was an attorney, and her boyfriend at the time, also an attorney. They decided they wanted a real estate license. So I think that's why my parents, so
They're like, great idea.
Great. Okay, whatever. So I'm 18, and I remember going to these classes and just, I was laying at the pool all day, because you could still do that back in the, in the 70s. We know better now.
Yes.
But, so I would just sit there, and I remember being called on and not paying attention at all. I'm like, I'm going to be an artist. I'm not being a real estate agent. But I went through with it for my parents, and actually, of course, if I would have started selling real estate, in the 70s,
right,
gazillionaire, because that was when that market just went crazy. But it's like I took the test, I passed. I don't know how. Got my real estate license, and then I went to art school. And I never used it. And back then, though, like everybody, all the real estate agents had that like blonde, like poofy hair.
Yes.
Like the pink suits, and I just remember this one shade of orange, orangey pink lipstick they all had, and I'm like, that is not my look. That did not work for me, so I can't possibly be a real estate agent. Plus, I never owned anything. Anyhow, so yes.
I just love how though you're deciding if it's the right field based on how do the people have to dress in this field? Like, is this how I'm going to dress? Because I'm not going to be in that field.
I'm not doing that. Nope, not doing that. But it's kind of interesting too, like my son, our kids, I know yours are little still. Mine is 28. Never wanted to be like me, all the things. And he ended up going into a experimental film. And so he got a undergraduate in experimental film, went to grad school in experimental film, taught at the college level in experimental film. And Craig, my husband, you've met Craig, he's amazing.
Yes.
And we have just, and I know this is from my parents too. It's like, you have to live your truth. You have to live your passion.
Yeah.
You can do something else, you could whatever, but if then you're not wholly happy, and so I think that thankfully Max had parents that also just said, okay, live your truth, live your passion. We support you, and all that kind of stuff. And now he's going in to teach as well, like what I did, the same path, but don't tell him. I mean, I think he quite
we'll let him think it's really independent, because that's usually the better way to go. It was really your independent idea.
Yeah, never. There's nothing like what I did. I majored in ceramics and drawing, so it was totally different.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so your son is in this path of going towards teaching as well too, but in a different medium, experimental film, and
well,
doing
that was, and now he's going to go teach history. Yeah.
Oh, so this is the shift that he's okay. Got it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
he's just finishing his degree to teach high school history.
Wow.
And he's a total socialist, dumpster diver, vegan, rock climber, cool dude. And I'm like, hey Max, you have to teach curriculum, right? It's like although the curriculum is not right, we know that, but you can't just like, well, I have some ideas. I'm like, okay, great, do it. And good for those kids, to get Max as their sure, it's going to be pretty magical. I'm really excited for him and the kids. Yep.
Yeah, that's I know people always say stuff like this, but it's true. Like we need people who help shift the way that things are done and the way that things can be. And that's really important to have people who are able to do that, to help us evolve and grow. And
agree. brave, you know?
It's
It's like,
brave. Yeah.
it's brave.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you, after college,
Um,
when did you start teaching
oh,
then? Yeah. How do you get to because you taught high school. How'd you
I
get
did
there?
30 years. Okay. So, all right. There I am. I graduate
Yep.
from school with a drawing and ceramics major. And I remember I had a very famous regional artist taught this like seminar class.
Mm.
And it was like the last day of the seminar class. I'm like, so what do we do now? Like
Mm.
we're like it was never taught, how to apply to a gallery, how to,
Yeah.
even for grad school, anything, nothing was taught. And I remember, and this is going to sound terrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. She said, don't worry about it. I said, well, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
door out. She goes, don't worry about it. You'll just get married and have someone take care of you. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm like, wait, what?
When did I sign up for that
I
degree? Like
know,
that
I
wasn't
know,
what, yeah.
I know.
Oh.
And I just spoke the other day at a university near here, at Miami University, which I love.
Mm.
And that's where I did my teaching certification. But, kind of talking to them and they're getting that information, I mean,
Yeah.
that's also, I'm talking, oh my gosh, a
Yeah.
long time ago. Oh my God, almost 50 years ago. Holy moly.
But
Anyway,
even still, that's like, this is the thing that always, like, when I look back to history things or generational things, like, it's not that far back that
um,
belief was there and really in forefront present. And it's why it still lingers in weird, sort of like unhelpful ways still. And
yep.
it's like, it's still like the tails of it are still just hanging on in some places. And how do you know, when does it fully leave a culture after it's been a part of it, and will it?
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
almost like what we were talking about, like that DNA, it's like,
Yes.
I mean, it's there. It's
Yeah.
in our society, it's in our heads.
Yeah.
But okay, so I don't know how to apply to anything. And
Yeah.
I live still with my parents in Kenwood,
Yep.
still at home.
Yep.
It's a nice little suburb in Cincinnati. And I kept thinking, well, all these famous, galleries and museums are going to come to my mom and dad's house and knock on the door and say, oh, is this where Pam Kravetz lives? We hear she's a great artist and we want her to have a show. And I waited and that never happened. I don't know. It was shocking that
Yeah,
it
I know.
never
I can't
happened.
believe, I mean, it's pre-internet and it's like, but they were gonna find you.
They were going to find me. And so I waited tables, which I loved because I
Yeah.
love the social part of
Yeah.
things. I like taking care of people and I like, all the
Yep.
things. And so I did that for about 8 years after.
Mm. Wow.
And my friends were saying, I know you're having fun and you think this is great. And I never even had a checking account. I just put my money in under a mattress.
Yeah.
Seriously. Oh
Yeah.
my God. And I thought I was rich. I had
Yeah.
dollar bills coming out of my mattress.
Yeah.
And they
That
said,
feels like an art piece waiting to happen.
I know, I know. I'm like, oh my gosh, just so like naive. But I was having fun. I don't regret anything, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I always see forward.
Yeah.
But so that was part that made me who I am.
Yeah.
So waiting tables, my friend said, I know you're having fun, you like this and all this stuff, but you're not yourself. Like we miss you.
Mm.
We miss that person.
Oh.
And they said you got to do something with art. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I really don't.
Yeah.
And they said, well, why don't you go and be a docent at the Contemporary Art Center? And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go to the training, totally fall in love with talking about art, teaching art. It was some of the best education I got as far as how to articulate what art is about, pull
Yeah.
the person into the conversation versus, just talking at them.
Yep.
And that was the turning point for me. And that's why the
Mm.
CCC is such an important part. The Contemporary Art Center in Cincinnati is such an important part of my life
Yeah.
and part of who I've become. Okay, so I go and I'm a docent.
That's just amazing though, that you also like that your friends did that caring thing for
Yeah,
you and they
yeah,
said that to you and they like that's a very brave thing too sometimes is to be
yeah,
the friend that tells your other friend like, hey, look, this isn't like you're not here right now. We miss like wow, that just pausing on that to have people in your life that give you that
yeah.
did that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was I remember like not liking that conversation.
Oh, yeah, right?
Wait,
Who
what?
wants to accept that?
Like I'm
I mean,
great. What are you talking about?
I'm still me. What do you what do you mean?
Yeah. But yeah, and it's just right. I've had, but I feel like that's a theme in my life that I've just
Mm,
had these people throughout that have helped kind of push me in great directions.
yeah.
It's like, and I know this for a fact that had that not happened early on, I would have been that kid that fell through the cracks, or,
Yep.
because I struggle in things that other people traditionally do well,
Yep.
and sometimes you get lost.
Yep.
And plus I like to be out late. I like to party. I like
Mm-hmm.
playfulness of things. I
Mm-hmm.
love, shots of tequila and dancing on,
Mm-hmm.
bars and all that kind of stuff. That's like my jam.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that if so, and I still like that, but if I think that if that had not happened, I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
where I would have
Absolutely.
ended up, because I was never a person that was into drugs or anything like that, but it was there,
Yeah.
especially in the restaurant business in the 80s. It was
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, 80s, 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But so okay, so I go there, and
Yeah.
then I decide I'm going to go be a teacher. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is great. I
Yeah.
love this. My mom was a teacher, so of course the last thing I wanted to be was what my mom was, which was a teacher,
Mm.
which is, and
This
my,
generational
my
family of teachers.
it is, it's true. You're right. So I go to grad school at Miami, and this is let me think, when was this? 89, 1989, something like
Okay.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Go to grad school, love it. I loved pedagogy. I
Yeah.
liked, the why. I liked all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
but even then I was doing, like, my papers were performances. They
Yeah.
let me do that. Just not have to write like the 80 million page
Yeah.
paper and all that stuff. And so okay, so I live on the east side of Cincinnati, and you mostly spent, when you were in Cincinnati, mostly on the east side.
Yeah.
There's a west side, which, like, where Wade Pool is and where the Sign
Yep.
Museum and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so, but when you grow up in Cincinnati, we have the east side, west side thing. So
Uh-huh.
you're
Yep.
not get along. I have no sense of direction, and I get a phone call from Southwest Local School District. The superintendent called, which I thought was like, wow, for an elementary school art teacher, that's
Just like the
cool.
principal again, right?
Yeah,
Like
right,
it is the
right, right,
principal.
right.
They
Those
want to meet
authority
me.
figures.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. And
Superintendent.
he said, he's like, you have no idea where we're located. And I said, I had no idea I filled an application for you. He's like, well, you did. And we're, Harrison, Ohio. I'm like, I have no idea where Harrison, Ohio is. And once I found out that it was past that 275 line of east to
Yeah.
west, I'm not a flat earther, but I did think that the world ended at 275 and you just so going over to the west side, and it's a very conservative part of the city. I'm
Mm-hmm.
Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
There are no, there were no people of color there. There was
Mm.
no, Jewish people. There was nothing. And I didn't fall off the earth. I went there. I was in my punk rock stage. I had licorice black hair, black lipstick, all the things. My sister took me to Ann Taylor.
Yeah.
Remember Ann
Oh
Taylor?
yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. She bought me a peach suit.
It's that
And
realtor suit she got
oh
you.
yeah, 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 it was. You're right. It came back to haunt me. And I had matching pink peach pumps and a peach bag. Yeah, all the things, like, and she pulled my hair back really tight so you couldn't tell it was asymmetrical and licorice black. And I knew once I walked in that room, I'm like, I got this. I knew
Yeah.
it. And it was the perfect place for me. And
Mm.
it was, I had something to offer.
Yeah.
Many of my friends are art teachers in this region, and they are badass, amazing, like
Mm.
unbelievable. They should be writing books, and they should,
Yeah.
just those people. And those are my circle of my loves in
Mm.
art education. And but there was nobody quite like that out where I was,
Mm.
and even at one point I got hired to teach where my friends all were, and the superintendent said, we need you here. Like,
Mm.
and do they need you? Like,
Do they really need you? Because they have all these
they
other
have all
amazing.
these
Yeah.
other amazing, and he really spoke to me. It spoke to me,
Mm.
and I was able to do things there that I don't think, and this is what we're kind of like, alluding
Yeah.
to earlier, just about, like, the place also dictates the who, in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
and they gave me opportunities. We were really into educational reform. I almost wanted to be a principal for a minute there. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of paperwork with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
doing that. But I loved it. And I taught elementary school
Hmm.
my first couple years. And I was doing the demos, you know, how like you have the little kids
Yes.
around the table. And I love that, you know, and oh my God, my favorite thing was teaching the first graders right after lunch, and they would have like Oreo cookie breath, you know, and they would just be like breathing on you. And you're just like, oh my gosh, you're like so cute. And I was definitely a rock star. You know, I
Oh.
remember walking down like the first grade hallway and second grade hallway, and the kids would come and stand in their door and they're like, it's Miss Kravitz, it's Miss Kravitz. You know,
It was
teaching high
like
school.
it was like a first parade.
Yeah, you're right. It was like the first parade. And you know, but it was like teaching high school is a little different,
Yeah.
but elementary. So so I'm giving my demo. All the kids are standing around me, loving teaching, getting awards, getting teacher of the year and district teacher of the year, you know, grants and all this stuff, and just really, really loving teaching.
Yeah.
And so my little first graders were there with the Oreo cookie breath, and I was doing a demo. And usually, you know, you demo for like
Yeah.
minutes. They have little short attention
Yes,
spans.
they do.
So you demo for 5 minutes, you send them back, you pull them back, I
Yep.
never sent them away. I just did the like, I don't know, I was drawing a stegosaurus or something, you know, foreground, background.
Yeah.
They never got their turn. And I
They never got their turn.
all of a sudden the teacher came to pick them up, and I'm like, oh, you guys, maybe next week.
You'll pick this up again. I'll keep working on details.
Exactly. I'm like, yeah, now I have a really cool picture of a stegosaurus with foreground background, but they had nothing. So, and I realized sort of like where my friends were saying, you know, you're
Yeah.
missing art. You need to get, I was missing
Yeah.
making art. And
Oh, that was going to be my question, because I was like, are you making art yet for yourself at this point? It's like
no,
all in the output, in the focus in these areas.
yep,
Oh,
yep,
but
yep.
that moment, oh my God.
That moment, it was pretty clear. I'm like, well, this is not fair to them or me.
Yeah.
So I love taking classes. I love learning things. I love being a student.
Yep.
And so I was taking these classes at Miami, and I learned how to narrative quilt, which is tell stories
Mm,
quilts, which is part of my making now. I still
yeah.
do a medium, but I took that class, and I took another class, because remember back, we're talking when I was in college, I wasn't dark, my work wasn't angry,
Yeah.
it wasn't political. I didn't even know what politics were then.
Hmm.
And but I had a sense of humor that wasn't really okay, you
Yeah.
know,
It
wasn't
wasn't
okay,
welcomed.
wasn't welcome. Oh, good.
Mm,
Yes, exactly. So I go and I take this class. I took an encaustic painting class, which is super cool.
yeah.
I love process, which makes sense
Yes.
to play.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
P.S. Totally want to talk about the terracage class you're teaching at
Oh,
Anderson.
yeah.
Really, really excited about that and intrigued. So I love process,
Yeah.
and I'm taking this class. I have a 3-year-old. I'm a single mom at this
Oh
point,
my gosh.
and I'm trying to potty train my kid.
Oh my
And
God, Pam, I just want to I want to throw an expletive out for you in that moment, because I just like,
I know. It's like, okay. So all these people are in there. They're serious artists. You know, we're in caustic painting, painting with a wax, you know, like one of the oldest art forms. It's
yeah.
very honored. It's all the things. And all I can think about is Max not potty training. And you know, people are like, throw M&Ms in the toilet and do this and do
Oh
that.
God. Yeah.
Um, so I did this whole, and I just saw Dale Chihuly's art for the first time, you know,
Yeah.
glass pieces,
Yeah.
and did this series of
Uh,
pooties.
uh-huh.
And so I did a series in encaustic painting about Pootie goes potty. And I got Barbie toilets and stuff like that and embedded them in the thing. And everybody's doing their very serious talk at the end of the class, and I bring up Pootie Goes Potty series,
Mhm.
and they're all laughing, you know, and they
Yeah.
loved it. And my teacher's like, Pam, you're funny. I'm like, yeah, well, so what? I mean, I'm talking, I'm close
Yeah.
to, how
Right.
old was I? Sheesh, I was like 37. So I
Yeah.
wasn't young
Right.
and in my art making world. And I'm like, yeah, but who cares about that? She goes, well, first of all, you care about it and you're good
Oh.
at it. Yeah,
Mhm.
see, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Those people, like
Those people.
those
My
people
God, Pam, in
down.
your life.
I know. It's so lucky because
Hmm.
so I'm like, oh, well, then I guess I can make funny art. I didn't know I could make funny art. I thought I how to be angry.
Yeah.
So or make first grade stegosauruses. That was like my two options. One is the other. And
This one.
so I take this other class, the narrative quilting, and then my teacher, Susie Shy, amazing,
Mm,
she tells stories about her family and her art.
mm,
And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, because that's what I
yeah.
care about.
Yeah.
And it was between those two teachers, Suzanne Fisher and Susie Shy, that kind of helped me solidify the path that my own personal work was going to take.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
yeah, it's so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
and okay, so not really making art, still just, mostly teaching, loving it still, but not feeling fulfilled.
Yeah.
And Susie said, and submit for this art show. So I made one
You
quilt.
learned how to submit for a show.
Yes, in my almost 40 years old. It was still back in the slide day. So
Yes.
everybody
Oh, the
listening,
slides.
yeah, the slides and oh my gosh, and having to go get them, printed or whatever
Yes.
said,
So much work. I always had to
developed.
drive an hour away to get mine
Yep.
made. And it was just like, and then I'd have to go back to pick them up. And
I know you young folks have no idea. It was like, yeah, it was hard, and they
It
were never
was.
good. They never were.
No.
Now we can judge that stuff, but you
Yep.
couldn't judge a slide.
No.
And so I submitted one a year, and I made one quilt a year for like 4 years. That was all I did, and I
Okay.
submitted. And I felt like I was an artist. I'm an artist that teaches, which is what I started as,
Yes.
having a BFA and then going back and getting teaching certification or an MF or an MED in teaching. So I was like, okay, I'm still killing the teaching thing. And now I'm making one piece a year. And
I just want to pause on that quick for
yeah.
a second, because I think for a lot of people, the people like that that I'm making this podcast for are people who are unsure. Like it's like like just all the transitions we go through in life, and how do we still maintain creative practice throughout those transitions? And
Yeah.
then there's so much talk that people, when I was teaching, I remember students sharing this a lot too, of like, can you even say you're an artist if you're not actively making, or if you're not da da da? And
Yeah.
like you just sharing too in this moment, like one quilt a year was enough to be able to say, yeah, I'm an artist,
I'm
and
an
like
artist.
own that title and like
Yeah.
feel that, and like just one quilt a year. And I just sometimes I think in contemporary training, education and training, I think it's changing a little bit, but there's a lot of emphasis on producing so many things and quantity of things, because the pace of learning, the pace of assignments, all of that. But the reality is it can be a different pace and still be a creative practice and a creative process. Yeah.
Don't you feel like it's who we are? It's not
Yes.
only what we do, it's
Yeah.
it's who we are. It's where, I mean, there's so many fields that people are passionate about or amazing at,
Mhm.
or all the things, but it's not part of their body, their guts, their heads,
Yes.
their life. And being an artist, musician, it's like it's who we are. It's not only
Yes,
what we do, it's who we are.
it is.
Honoring that, I think, is not always easy,
I agree. Yeah.
and it doesn't always pay the bills. And so you have to kind of figure out what your life is like, circling around that as your
Mhm.
nucleus. But yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I also wonder if that's maybe sometimes why there's this weird mystique or even a devaluing of artists, is because it is who you are. Like when you really embody the experience of a creative, artistic life. And maybe there's something about that, because then uh, I'm not sure. I don't have quite my thought
Well,
about it, but I'm just wondering if there's a connection between that, and that the way that artists are often perceived as an other experience for people,
right.
like that they are outside of that possibility. And I mean, I think there's like scales of expression in creative life that we all live on different kind of like orbits of it. And maybe,
Right. That's
yeah.
interesting because it is. I mean, it's still, it is devalued. And
Hmm.
and being an artist in that whole, it is very mystical.
Yeah.
It's, well, I can never do that. I mean,
Yeah.
man, I can't draw a stick, man. I'm
You and
not an
I
artist.
can't.
We can't. We totally,
No,
you
we
and me.
can't.
I
I
know.
was
I'm like,
just
oh my
like,
God. That was my assignment. That was my homework with you. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, no, I'm gonna have to Google that.
just let AI make it for you.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Then I have to figure out how to push those buttons
Just
on the
like
computer.
Craig, like
I know. Yeah,
Craig.
Craig will do it. It's so true. It's true. But I think you're right. I do. And that whole idea of this with like this mystical character. Artists
Yeah.
are, they're otherworldly. They are the other in a way,
Yeah.
one kind of the other. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So when you have this realization, like, okay, you need to get back in the making, you take these classes, you're making the one quilt a year, you apply to the show. That's where we are. You've applied to the show.
Apply to the
Then,
show.
and then what happens after you apply to the show?
So I get in,
Yep.
which is exciting. And
Yes.
Susie messaged me, called me and said, I just want you to know, I know the quality of your work and that's why you got in, but your slides are terrible. Yeah, it was the same show. It was this quilt show about nature.
Mm,
And I mean, now I'm super duper into nature. I'm kind of
yeah.
like a whatever nature goddess, but
Uh-huh.
I was not like that back then. And I had to make up things about nature, which I could care less about in order to get into
Yeah,
the
you're like,
show.
what am I going to tell you
I
about
know.
nature?
And I think one of them was a boyfriend that I had, and the whole thing was nature was picking sand out of my butt, and we had sex on the beach or something like that. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
what the story was, it had nothing to do with nature. It was, but I'm like, well, I'm outside, so
So
that kind of
that's
counts.
nature. Yeah.
But yeah, so I did that, and then I think what happened was I really, really liked this quilting and I could
Mm,
tell stories. And when people ask me now, and I think we've had this conversation,
yeah.
that people will say, well, what kind of art do you make? What do you do?
Yeah.
And I always say that I'm a storyteller. And
Mm,
that is my art. And what it is that whatever the medium is that I need to articulate that story or tell that story is the medium.
mm, mm-hmm.
So I do play, I paint, performance, fibers, sculpture, installation, puppets, whatever it is that will best articulate that.
Yeah.
So, all right, but I'm still making quilts at this point.
Yep.
And everybody's fixing me up. It was that sweet spot when people were just getting divorced from their first marriages and looking
Yep.
for their second one.
Yep.
So I'm in that sweet spot. Everybody's fixing me up, going on
Yep.
all these dates. And I'm just having terrible blind dates. I'm really bad at it. And
Mm-hmm.
but it's so funny because you kind of think that would hurt my ego. It didn't. I'm just okay.
You had a healthy, like, okay, well, yeah,
Yeah,
there.
that one didn't work.
Next one. Yep.
And there was this book called and I know we're totally getting off track,
No, this
but
is great. It truly is great. I love it.
this book called The Rules.
Oh,
Uh,
I feel like I have heard this referenced before.
yeah, and
Okay.
so I get the book and it's 10 rules, and one of them is like dress like a lady, wear a dress, grow your hair long, don't yeah, I know. This is recent. I mean, we're talking like
Yeah.
25 years ago. Grow your hair long, don't fill in the negative space. That's not what they called it, but that's what we call it as artists. Like don't talk when someone's like, don't be the person that starts the conversation. I know.
I just want to be like,
I
good
know.
grief.
I mean, can you imagine me? Like, really?
No, I feel like you're like, I'm going to I feel like you want to write like the counterbalance to these rules and the opposite things, like
I know.
whatever the hell you want with your hair, talk as much as you need to talk and
Yep.
start the story.
And wear a damn tutu. Well,
Yes.
I guess that's a dress, but so I decide, since I'm not good at this dating anyway, that I'm going to do a different rule with each date I go on.
Love it.
So one day I couldn't do the long hair thing, but one date I like dress super girly, and another one, which was, God love this guy, he's so sweet. I don't even know who he is, but we go on a date. He takes me to a football game, which was Ohio State and UC, which were big. That we're not really rivals because Ohio State, well, now UC is pretty good. But anyway, we have these great seats. He's the quietest human in the face of the earth, does not talk. And that was my date to not fill in the negative space and not start the conversation. Oh my God,
Damn.
Rhonda. I know. And it was a great game. It was super
Oh
good.
my God.
And he didn't say like a word to me. I think at one point he asked me if I wanted a beer, and I'm like, oh my God, do I get to talk now? Like, is my thing? And so super bad at dating, really bad at it. Never got a second date, probably went on, I don't know, 15 or 20 dates. I do this series about love in my quilts, and it's at a tiny little space. And somebody said, and then they invited me to have 3 pieces in another tiny little space. And the art critic from the Cincinnati Enquirer, Marilyn Bauer, bought one. I didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
She was also looking for love, and these were like about looking for love.
Oh.
I know. Oh yeah. And and so okay, so Marilyn buys one. And I go up to her and I said, "Hey, do you want to meet the amazing artist that made that quilt?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to." And I'm like, "It was me, ha ha ha." And and she decided I was funny. She liked my art, and she was going to write an article about me. But I had to wait. I had 3 shows coming up about bad blind dates, bad relationships, all the things. So it's starting to happen. I was
Yeah.
starting to get shows. And I was still teaching full time,
Yep.
still single mom full time, still all the full times. And that's also when I
Yeah.
talk to people and they talk about balance. There's no such thing. Let it go.
Yeah. I almost like cringe at the word. I'm like,
Oh, I know.
balance. Like
I
it's
know.
all a flow. Like you're just flowing
Yep.
from one thing to the other thing. And like the thing to do is to be fluid and move. Like it's like,
Yeah.
how do you just let yourself move between the areas of your life? Like that's
That's
what balance is. Like
that's
that's
what it should be called. I like
yeah.
that flow. You're
No.
good at this. I'm gonna get your book when you because no, you're right. It is. And then I think too, when you think balance and you can't balance,
Yeah.
then you beat yourself up because you're not balance. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, let it go
Yeah.
and go with the flow. Go with flow. Go. I like
Mm.
that. Okay, so got all these shows,
Yeah.
all the things, and she writes this article, and that's how I met Craig. Craig read the
Mm.
article, my husband, my second husband,
Yep.
and he read the article. He works with one of my students' dads. So the dad asked the daughter if I would go out with his friend. And that's how we met. I just had business cards made for the first time. I hand her a stack, Allie Young. I hand her a stack, and I'm like, just tell your dad to give them to all his friends. I mean, like,
You're like, my record has
whatever.
not been great. I gotta like try as much as I can. It's just like, put them out there.
Yeah. And so I met Craig through that, and that was amazing. And I think it also just started this whole kind of trajectory for
Yeah.
me in art, that series. And at the same time, I'm working for Artworks downtown. You saw those
Yeah.
murals, things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because I'm a single mom, being a
Yeah.
teacher, super supportive family, but I
Yeah.
still need to work and
Right.
pay my bills. So I learned the beauty of the apprenticeship kind of way of making, which is the
Yeah.
way I do community now. Kind
Yeah.
of. And all right, so I'm helping. We weren't doing murals then, which is a good thing because I'm afraid of heights. So
That really rules out the scale of mural you can work on.
yeah, it's like little on the ground. I can do that. But so I think that I learned from there how your voice can be louder, your presence can be bigger, your
Yeah.
message can be, all those things working with a team.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And it
Yeah.
kind of married community art making and art teaching for me.
Mm.
So I think those two things were kind of happening in parallel.
Yeah.
And so my art was kind of getting noticed and my community work was getting noticed. And this is something I tell young artists all the time. It's like, do what you say, be on time, no excuses.
Yeah.
And I embodied that. And
Yeah.
because I think, and we talk about the mysticism and the whole thing with artists, the way people perceive artists is we're flaky and we don't follow through and we're, and if our creative juices aren't flowing, we're not going to make, all those things, which might be super true on some levels, but so's everybody,
Right. Right.
not,
It's not exclusive to people who are artists. Like
no,
that's just
exactly.
humans.
It's
That's just
humans.
humans.
And they just like put it on us. So I always tell young artists that is do what you say. And nobody wants to know the why you didn't get it done. And I lost money on commissions because I would overthink what I could possibly create in that amount of time, and I've had to hire out. And it's more important for me to make sure that I'm trusted and respected and all those things along with a badass art
Result.
product.
Yeah.
And so I think those were kind of those things were all sort of happening at the same time for me.
Yeah. That's a lot happening at the same time. And like, it's just so much that's sort of swirling and growing and just like,
yeah. And I, it's almost, and maybe I do things in threes, like a little, like the Bearcat and the sorority and the art school, but
one of my favorite numbers.
Mine too. And so I think that all of a sudden I got like recognized for, doing these things. And so much of it was not about me, although everything's always about yourself, sort of. I mean, all my work, self-portrait, but mine was elevating community and people through the arts.
Yeah.
Which is what we do as
Right.
teachers, you know.
Yeah.
And so around the same time I started a yarn bombing group called the
Yeah.
Bombshells of Cincinnati.
Okay,
And
say their name again because I was like, yeah, because I read that somewhere.
we're called the Bombshells of
Mm,
Cincinnati. And
nice.
I am the poser, bombshell. I don't know how to knit or crochet. Everyone tried to teach me. I just started it. I'm like, this looks cool. We should do it. So I asked some friends and they all could knit and crochet. And I was sort of the front person. I
Yep.
got the gigs, I got the whatever. And we just blew up in this
Yeah.
region. We did something for the Contemporary Art Center, the Art Museum, the Dayton Art Institute, like all of these places. And we were fun and funny and performative. And the product was great.
Yeah.
So and this kind of gets into part of my community
Yeah.
advocacy. And so we did this pop-up flash mob of, which is funny because we had an interview on the news and the guy's like, this is not a spectator sport. You know, watching people knit is not a spectator sport. And he was the best interview. It was so funny.
Oh.
But so what I did is we had 10 bombshells, and
Mm-hmm.
then those 10 bombshells had 10 sidekicks, they were called.
Mm-hmm.
And we all planned this thing in downtown Cincinnati where we did like 100 trees and this whole area,
Mm.
and nobody knew there were 110 other people showing up. So it was
Oh,
like a
wow.
big surprise for
Yeah.
the artists, and the
Oh.
bombshells knew. And so it was just this like massive undertaking. It was beautiful, it was fun, it was community, and so many people got involved through that. Arnold's Bar and Grill, which we had dinner at, remember?
Uh-huh. I do. You
They
do
have a
you ride in their bathtub
I
at the
do.
parade,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right. And that's where the whole parade thing started, besides first grade, besides
Besides first
walking.
grade,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. And so we signed the note. We went there for lunch after one of our yarn
Mm.
bombings, and in street clothes, not in our bombshell clothes. And that we said sign the Bombshells of Cincinnati. Well, Chris, the owner, loves street art, and he knew
Mm.
who we were in 5 minutes. He's like, he follows all the things he sees. He's like, I love you guys. What can I do? How can I help? And he just helped so much. And at the same time, he's like, hey, would you drive our bathtub in? It's called the Bachfest Parade.
Mhm.
And Bachfest is irreverent. It's about Bach beer and goats and
Goats?
goats. Yeah, and nuns, and they have this really funny parade. So I got to drive the bathtub for the parade, and I work with somebody that makes my wigs. I work with a milliner that makes my hats. I, make the costuming and all that kind of stuff. So it was like it was a spectacle of, color and excitement and fun and joy. And I'm comfortable with people.
Yeah.
So I was super comfortable with the people along the parade route. Oh, okay. Meanwhile, I did that for like 5 years. I did the
Yeah.
Reds parade, our baseball team, Pride parade, did that. Now I MC the Pride Parade, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I love doing those things. But I think that okay. So that's kind of the advocacy as well.
Yeah.
And for
Yes.
teaching high school, also in
Yes.
a very conservative part of the city.
When did you switch to high school teaching? So what
Oh,
part of, because I realized we stopped you were in the
yeah.
elementary school, and that your art career on your own work started during that time. So when did you transition to high school?
I was a traveling teacher, so that means when
What is
I
you went from class like school to
was
school?
school to
Oh,
school.
art on the cart stuff.
Thankfully I always had a room.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah.
Because I'm so disorganized, that would never have worked.
Yeah.
But I was in 2 schools one year, 3 schools another year, and then 2 schools in the high school part-time.
Hmm.
They didn't have a 3D program. They had a really strong drawing, painting, but
Hmm.
they didn't have 3D. I was really welcomed with open arms to kind
Mm.
of expand their art program. And I wrote grants, and we got 10 wheels and kilns, and um
Amazing.
yeah, and I was also kind of celebrated for the quirky human that I am. And
Yes.
I was on boards. They would let me out of school for board meetings. I know,
That's like
like,
unreal. I feel
I
like
know,
this is not the K-12 experience that people
no,
have shared previously. So it's just amazing to hear that that exists.
yes,
And
yes. And
yeah,
they got it. They kind of didn't get it, but they got it. They got
yeah,
that whatever I was doing that wasn't in the classroom was benefiting the kids.
yes,
So, it's like if I had a show at the art museum or something, my students would help make the work too.
Yeah, they would get amazing experiences
Yeah,
then from that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And because I was in so many parades, I was and a visual artist, I was asked to be the artistic director for our first Blink parade,
Mm,
which is our light
yep.
projection big thing. We have millions of people that come to Cincinnati. And so that was super fun. And but going to my high school, this is,
Yeah.
went to the band director and I just said, hey, I know we don't know anything about this. Nobody knows. It's kind of a leap of faith. We have this idea, Cincinnati. Will the band be part of it? And he's like, we'll do anything for you, Pam. Whatever you just tell me where to be and what to do. And
Hmm.
then the cheerleaders, our choir, our special needs classes,
Hmm.
everybody was in the first Blink parade, and we got
Mm,
to the parade, and it was a monumental thing.
mm,
But that was that trust and the love that I got from teaching there.
mhm.
I mean, not to say it was hard for me to teach, because the paperwork part, I would actually have to have friends sit down with me with my grade book and like
Yeah.
help fill in because my brain just doesn't work that way.
Yep.
Um, and I had superintendents that I actually all my superintendents really liked me. I had some principals that, were not team Pam.
Sure. They found
Yeah,
it challenging because they're probably like, why doesn't she just do what everyone else does? And why
yeah,
is this?
yeah.
And just, I think there's so much value in sharing, though, that we all do things differently, and that if we can find more and more ways to like welcome and incorporate how things can be done differently in processes, that we actually are just like a fuller breadth of human expression when we do that. I just, when I hear what you're describing and the ways that you've worked through it, it makes me think of other people who have shared. Like, I think like the author Brene Brown talks about, she writes best if she brings a group of people with her, like close friends, to a small house to retreat, kind of like, and
Oh,
then she'll speak things out loud, and then she'll go and write, and then she'll come back to the group and just need them to listen to her say
yeah.
it, to like as part of the process. And it's like, if we can all learn to build the community
Uh,
that supports our
yeah.
processes like that, that makes it easier for us to accomplish things too.
Is
I don't
wouldn't
know.
that be a beautiful thing? Yeah, yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
no. I agree. I do. I feel like too, with the education, with testing and everything
Yeah.
now, those opportunities are few and far between
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
educational field, just
Yeah.
because, there's so much accountability and it's difficult. It's not,
Yeah.
where back in the day, I could go to the Spanish teacher, and I remember partnering at the high school level, partnering
Yeah.
with the Spanish teacher and the ecology teacher and art and studying the monarch butterfly migration. So,
Yeah.
but that, that was like a perfect, obvious fit,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
to do those kind of things now, I think it's just very few and far between
It
because
is, because
yeah,
curriculum is so
tight.
set and tight. Like, you have to
Yeah,
follow this curriculum
yeah,
this way. And then that makes me think, like, how do we then help influence and impact curriculum so that the
yeah,
curriculum helps build those connections
right.
across
And we
in
all
better
learn better
ways?
that way. We
We
know
do.
that.
Oh, that's how we live life, right?
Yeah,
It's always
right,
it's
right.
like
It's
this
not
connects to
stagnant.
this
Yeah,
goes to
yeah,
here,
yeah,
and it's like,
yeah.
all I always say, it's really webby. The world is really webby.
It is really webby. That's your third chapter in your book. But I think, okay, so kind of talking about that in a
Yeah.
way, just about the community way that I work, and
Yeah.
even now, the work that you've seen of mine when you were in
Yes.
Cincinnati, that's a team. And I've actually changed the way that I talk about my work. It's Pam Co now. It's not Pam
Yeah.
Co, because I can't do any of the things I do by myself.
Yeah.
But okay, so I would
Yeah,
do the
let's talk about your work,
yeah,
this
yeah,
newer
yeah,
work
yeah.
too, because I want you to share. We have the pictures, which I'm so excited about being able to share those, but share what the physicality of the work is, what it all incorporates in, like, in this Pam and Co, and like what that means. And
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think too that this goes back to what you were saying about, wouldn't it be great if we could, help each other be who we are and
Yeah.
celebrate who we are, like I did get that when I taught, and
Hmm.
um or this author that you were talking about, like that kind of a thing. That's
Yeah.
kind of how I work.
Yeah.
And I think I'm pretty great. I can do lots of cool things. I
Yeah.
also know there's a lot of things I can't do, like tap dance and play the banjo.
You're
Which
working on it.
I'm working on it. So I would use the arts, and I still do. Two fundraisers this weekend where the arts are a huge part of that. I would work with nonprofits a lot and infuse art and say, we're going to reach a bigger crowd. We're going to get it. It's more exciting. It's more fun. It's more all that. So I work with aerialists, and I work with, you saw the party.
Yes, I
Those are my
did.
friends.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that party. You organized this incredible dance party for the conference that had aerialists, it had the jazz band with a DJ and
Flash mob
balloons,
and
flash mob. I
balloons.
missed the flash mob. I was so sad because I arrived after that point. I'm like, oh, I would have loved that.
I have a video. I'll show you.
Okay, perfect.
But I started doing this like a long time ago.
Yeah.
So helping fundraise mostly for the arts,
Yeah.
but using performance art and giving opportunities to other artists. So I get invited, I get asked, and then I'm like, well, I can't do this by myself, and I want to do it by myself because remember, I don't even want to go to the grocery store by myself. So I would invite my friends in, like the bombshell kind of friends, and say, here's our theme. It has to be about art and food. Your costuming has to be made out of food, 90% out of food. And you have to get a model and all the things. And I'm like, go, I'll see you later.
Yep.
And then we would come back together and crit, but you never get after art school. Like nobody's there to kind of say, oh, hey, have you thought about this or thought about that? So I think the teaching always is part of even my work now.
Yeah.
So, and this is all in parallel teaching. I just retired 2 years ago. So I'm doing all this at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I give people opportunities and trust.
Yeah.
And then I help facilitate what they want to do. And that, I think, is kind of like what you were talking about. In a way, I'm kind of giving back in the way that I've been nurtured and elevated and supported. So I do all that kind of stuff a lot, and I still do. And it's fun, and it brings in it also gives people that aren't comfortable with the arts, it gives them an opportunity to be infused in it in another way where they're more comfortable. And then it also gives the arts a bigger audience.
Yes.
And I've worked with Caracal, which is our AVOC, AIDS human rights campaign, lots of art centers, the Sign Museum, all these things. Okay. My work now. So I'm working like big collaborative pieces, just helping facilitate and whatever. I am starting to also show my work a little more with Blink. And this kind of started the series that a lot of the photos that you're going to share are from. So Blink is this light parade. We also have light installations and the parade and all that in the buildings. I was given a really nice stipend and freedom to create a piece for this big event. I love naming stuff after family and friends and me. And so my son's nickname is Mr. Doodle Boy. And which can you see him when he teaches high school history? You just call me Mr. Doodle Boy.
Mr. Doodle Boy. It's a great icebreaker introduction.
Know, really. Can you see him like on the chalk or on the whiteboard, whatever they use now, Mr. Doodle Boy. So that piece was called Dazzle Doodle's House of Fun. And I started this whole idea of the House of Fun, the mouth as an entryway into an experience. I always say that my art comes to life when the viewer interacts with it. I've never been, even in undergrad, my piece was performative where I had hundreds and hundreds of pieces and I expected them to all disappear throughout the process. I love that. And again, it kind of goes back to my needing to be around people and wanting to be around people. A lot of the puppets and that kind of stuff too are all active. All right, so I make this installation. Again, I got an idea, but I don't know how to, make a, a 20-foot tunnel out of wood that we have to like build, take apart, rebuild.
Yeah.
So my friends, everybody gets like a part. Somebody gets a part of something. And, one of them was sculpting these headpieces for me that, I love bunnies.
Yes.
I don't know why, but so these bunny heads that you could see through out of fiberglass, somebody else is helping quilt the bodies, somebody else is helping paint the walls. And Craig is, the engineer, my husband is doing the design work.
Yeah.
And we built it off site 100%.
Yeah.
And then we took it apart off site. almost 100% and rebuilt it in an alleyway in downtown Cincinnati. And that's what you're going to see in those pictures.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I am so lucky. Like, I could never do these things. Oh, I had a musician. I love working with musicians.
Yes.
And so I had a musician make the soundtrack for the piece as well.
Mm.
And we showed up at the first day of it. There was a line, and that's the photo you see. The line
Yes.
just went around the block of people waiting to experience this. And it was that feeling, when you have a
Yeah.
show or you do a piece or
Or like the
nothing.
conference, like when we help organize the conference, it's that feeling of people are going to come experience something that you've conceptualized and worked to help
Yes,
produce. And like, yeah, it's that
yes,
feeling. Yet the
yes.
anticipation, and it's just like, well, because what I also hear you talking about too is like, it's like you're sharing it with people, but it's also like your gift to people. Like, here's
Oh,
I want to give this to you. I want to give you an experience that brings me joy, and I hope will bring you joy. And like, there's
yeah.
there's a definite giving to the gifting and giving to what you're doing.
Oh, I love that. Oh, chapter 4.
You're gonna have a really big book by the end of our conversation. And I need you to contribute to it too.
Okay, I will, I will, I will. I will not draw the stick people though. I will, if that's a part of it.
But Mr.
Um,
Doodleboy needs to be his own book. I've decided. I was like, Mr. Doodleboy is a character from a children's book that needs to be made by you.
I am totally, that is something in my head. I didn't tell you my first piece at the Contemporary Art Center because remember, I mean,
Oh
that's just
yeah.
art, okay, and I wasn't going to, but I'm going to anyway because it was the puppets, first interactive piece on
Mhm.
museum. A lot of times I get invited to make kid-centric or,
Sure.
education-centric things. And so it was the beauty queen that I always wanted to be,
Yes.
the superhero because I wasn't popular in kindergarten, and I thought if I brought the real Batman, Adam West,
Right.
to kindergarten for show and tell, people would like me. And then Peanut was my nickname because I was round, and which is not what a peanut looks like. I don't
No.
understand that, but I was round, and so it was all this process about um, being myself, like
Yeah.
wanting these things, and then realizing that the peanut's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so that was like the process with kids for them
Mm.
to go through that. They got to interact with them. They had superhero capes to put on. They had all this
Oh,
stuff. Yeah, I
yeah.
know. But I
Yeah.
love titles. I
Yes.
totally love titles. So yeah, Dazzle Doodle's House of Fun. And then there's another piece at the Cincinnati Art Museum that I was also invited to do in the rec center. I was the first, you saw where Roberto Lugo was?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't there. Yeah, it wasn't there. Yeah. Our Cincinnati Art Museum for the first time had an artist in residence artist, and it was Roberto Lugo for the NCCA conference.
Mhm.
Down the hallway on the other side is
Mhm.
the rec center, which is the Rosenthal Educational Center. And I was the first artist in residence there. So
Amazing.
I made this piece and I named it after, oh my gosh, isn't this awful? It was one of Craig's grandkids. His first one is Asa Ramon. So it was Ace Ramon, Mr. Doodleboy, the Peanut, and you, or
Oh.
something like that. And so it was all about that. Okay, fast forward. So Blink, loved it. That feeling.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was so excited. And everybody liked working on it.
Yeah.
Everybody felt that way. It was like
Yeah.
everybody felt this ownership and this passion for it.
Yeah.
And then the show that you saw when you first came to Cincinnati was a show that I had been trying to do for 7 years. When I'm pretty well known in this area and very
Mhm.
well respected and get lots of wonderful opportunities. And everybody kind of loves me. It's my thing.
They do. It's so easy to love you, Pam. I just like
Well, I don't know.
it
We'll have
was
to have
for
a drink
me.
about
It was
that.
for me.
But so okay, so super, super respected, super loved, super all the things, doing major, I mean, everywhere. I'm everywhere. I'm not at this one gallery, the Weston Art Gallery. I am
Mhm.
not. I submitted, I bet 7 times,
Yep.
got rejected. And finally, I don't know, I was like 55 probably at this point.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what do I have to lose? I'm going to invite Dennis Harrington, the curator, who's amazing,
Mhm.
for a drink and just say, what's going on? So I asked him for a drink. Meanwhile, he let me host an installation on the roof of the Weston.
Oh. like,
an interaction.
in proximity, you're right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I'm like, I'm close. I'm on the roof,
Almost inside.
but
Is
I'm
that
not
why
in
those
there.
figures came through the ceiling? They're like, I'm coming in.
Here. I should tell Dennis that. He would totally agree. So I asked him for a glass of wine and actually a bourbon. We're, close to
Yeah.
Kentucky. We're bourbon.
Yep.
And he's like, so, hey, what's going on? I go, I don't know, Dennis, what's your problem? And he's like, what's my problem? What are you talking about? I'm like, everybody loves me. It's kind of clear, And he's like, but clearly you don't love me. He goes, no, Pam, I love you. I'm like, well, I don't know. You're not giving me a show and I have a
Yeah.
problem. And he said, well, there's lots of things, all the things, all
Yeah.
the things. And it was great. And that also is something I tell younger artists.
Yeah. How you had to have that conversation.
It was hard because you don't
Yeah.
want to hear about why you didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really hard, but I thought at that point I was pretty cocky and I'm like, whatever, what do I have to lose?
You're
But
feeling confident with everyone else's like support of you. So it's like,
yes,
this is the time to go. Like, I know people
yes,
support me. So I want to figure out what's going on here. Like, why in this situation?
and it's such a great gallery, it.
Yes. But what did he
And
tell you were the problems? Like, are you willing to share some of those? Like,
yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
curious
yeah.
for people, like,
It
why somebody doesn't get an opportunity. Like, I think
it
people
kind of
wonder that.
Well, and I think that, it's like, and now I jury stuff and oh gosh, I don't like to jury. I want
Yeah.
everybody to win. I have a
I
really hard
know.
time with that. But it was a lot of that. My whole poppy way of making art
Mm,
is somebody told me once, and at first I was insulted by it, and then I kind of grew to love it. He said, Pam, you make fine art with a little f, not a
mm,
capital.
mm,
And my art is tangible, understandable. It is what it is. There's no reading between the lines. You don't have to have an art degree to understand my work. I always say it's kind of like a gateway
it's
drug or gateway
accessible.
art. It's accessible, and I'm okay with that. Like I
Yeah.
like that, but
Yeah.
it doesn't fit everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think, and Dennis said, well, you use a lot of pink. And I do. I mean, I'm looking at this dude here. I'm looking at these guys over here. Everybody is like, fuzzy pink, fake fur, all the things. And I'm like, yeah, I go, but is that like a problem? Like, is it
Yeah, like, why is that
problem?
what
It's like a
critique is
thing.
that? I know, like,
And he
really?
said,
Pink?
it's really not a problem. He said, it's just hard, it was hard. He like was honest. He's like, it was just kind of hard to see, like to
Yeah.
look at him to see that. And I mean, I wasn't going to tone my voice down.
No.
I mean, I think criticism is really important
Yeah.
in all stages of our life and our art making. But I'm like, okay, well, I hear you. I hear that maybe it's like too much, and
Mhm.
I can hear that. And then he also said, he goes, it's just never your work's never fit in whatever the
Oh, theme of a show
theme
was or
of the
something?
show. They only do 4 a year.
Mm,
There's things, and he said, I've never really kind of found the right fit for you to be with, and
mm.
and that kind of stuff. He said, apply again. And that was about 3 bourbons later, and I go home to Craig. I didn't drive. He picked me up. And I said, he's like, so how'd it go? I go, it's great. I love Dennis. He's like amazing. He's so much fun. All the
Mhm.
things. I go, but I'm never applying for that gallery again. And Craig is around me so much. He knows like when I'm like so definitive like
Yeah.
that, like, oh, hell no, not doing that. He's like, okay, right. All right.
See you next week.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly about next week, we submitted and we wrote the thing, and I had taken a class in Prague.
Mm,
And this is that there are teachers listening. There's this incredible organization. It's called Fund, FUND, for teachers.
mm.
And it is elementary, high school. I think you have to have taught maybe 3 years. And it is, how most grant writing especially in education, is not for you.
Right.
It's for your classroom, it's for your
Yep.
students, it's for your whatever demographic that the grant is about or whatever. It's never
Right.
about you.
Right.
This grant is about you. This
Mm,
grant is about you fulfilling a passion, doing something that, again, it will filter back into the classroom. It has to, because
always.
that's who we are. But it is like, what do you want to do that
Mm.
you can't do because the financial part of that makes it impossible?
Yeah.
It's a $5,000 grant, And I wanted to go to Prague and learn how to make a traditional wood carved puppet. And I got a grant to go to Prague. I know. So please, anybody listening, definitely look into that grant.
I'm putting that in the show notes too. Like I'll
Okay.
look it up and find a link and get that, because that
It's
is,
good.
I can think of people right now that I know that are art educators. I'm like, you need this. Like I know them because I knew them as art majors who are
Yep.
also getting their art ed degree. And I'm like, I know some people who need this opportunity. Yeah.
It's life changing. It is. And the
Yeah.
other thing is, it's like, I think this is something we get, and this is, we have a whole nother podcast for this one, but just
Yeah.
the whole idea of art ed versus fine art
Yes.
and how they don't necessarily get along. And
People
I
are
think
so weird about that when you're
it's
in
so
school.
weird.
Like sometimes I mean, we had students were doing dual degree of BFA and art ed, and I can remember resistance that came from other places to them doing that. And I just thought, why why are we resisting this?
I
This
don't know.
only makes for a stronger teacher. And like my high school art teacher left high school art teaching to pursue her MFA, and I remember being so disappointed at the time. And now as somebody who did an MFA, I'm like, well, I get it. Like I know why she did that. Like good on her. Like
I
yes.
know. And like, what a leap of faith, or what
Yes.
a, you know, which
Yeah.
I never had. I still don't have my MFA. I want to go
Yeah.
back. Like
Yeah.
that is a goal of mine, just
Yeah.
for me, to have that, designated time and
Yes,
space.
it's about the time and space in it. It's not
Yeah,
about the letters of the degree. It's like
no, no,
it's the kind of work you do to earn that degree, that it's the time of the work that's really
yeah,
amazing
yeah.
and
It,
like doesn't happen a lot.
it
So you
doesn't.
got to learn how to
Oh,
make these wooden carved
okay.
puppets, because
Yes,
I was wondering how they came into your life because I've
I
seen
know.
them and I was just like, I've loved marionette puppets. Like I have a visceral memory of those as a kid, and always wanting one and wanting to be able to manipulate, and then getting like a cheap one and not being able to manipulate
I
well
know.
and being so disappointed in myself. Like I can't
I
do it.
know. Well, I had those big puppets. They were 8 foot long puppets at the Contemporary Art Center, my first show there, and but they weren't real puppets,
Yeah.
And but I like the interactive part, and I
Yeah.
like the storytelling part. I'm not a puppeteer, which I think is really funny, because when I took this class in Prague, we had to do like a puppet show, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to make a weird voice and like all the things. Which is so funny because, yeah, people are like, oh, well, you're a puppeteer. I'm like, nah, I just like, I don't, yeah,
Not the same thing.
not
Like
the same
I'm
thing.
on a teaching grant and like
I just want to make some cool shit, man. But it was okay. So all right, it's called Puppets in Prague. If
oh my
anybody's
gosh.
interested,
Yeah.
the nicest people on the face of the earth,
Mm,
unbelievable. I made a second puppet during the height of COVID, and it was online. They sent
mm.
you drew your design, they cut the base pieces out, you carved online with them. It was so good. And but I love, and again, process,
Yep.
it's sort of like, we know us as artists, like what is it that,
Mhm.
feeds the way we want to create, and process is huge for me.
Mhm.
And okay, so I loved it. I'm doing this Czech puppeteer class, and my teacher Merrick and his wife Leah, and I said to Merrick, I was so proud of my first puppet, Jingle Bell Yosemite.
Mhm.
She's named after the first. It's your stripper name. Everybody
Uh-huh.
has it's the first street you lived on,
Yep.
and the first pet. So yeah, Jingle Bell was my first pet's name, and Yosemite Drive. So Jingle Bell Yosemite. So I made Jingle Bell. I am like feeling I live in Prague now. I am a Czech puppeteer. I'm like, these are my people.
Mhm.
I belong here. So I went up to Merrick and I said basically that. I'm like, I feel like I'm one of you,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, and I'm like, my puppet, I feel like it looks like, he's like, oh, Pam. And, broken English. He's like, you are so American. It's like, you are not a Czech puppeteer. But so it, I know, I'm like, oh man.
The
And
world just keeps telling you, "Be
I know,
you, be
I
you." Like, they're just like,
know.
"I know you think you wanna be over here, but just be you."
For
Right?
you. Oh my God, chapter 5. Yeah. You're right though. You're right. Cause I'm like, oh yeah. And Craig, I love Craig. And,
Yes.
he walks in the door after, whatever. And I'm like, Craig's home. Yay.
Yes.
I mean, I love him. But he shows up, he met me there.
Yep.
And it was the first time I ever used a passport. I was 50.
Oh,
It was
wow.
the
Yeah.
first time I ever used a passport, and
Mhm.
traveled by myself and all
Yeah.
the things. I don't speak Czech. And we were saying it wasn't like in the main area, the touristy area where everybody spoke English. It was like a small town. And I thought, well, this is the way I always meet people. At a bar.
Yep. Just take me there.
Yeah. So I walked around this whole neighborhood trying to find somebody that spoke English. And so I drank a lot of pints of whatever, Pilsner, whatever it was. And I finally, of course, the last place you look, but at closest to my Airbnb was this woman, and we're still friends. And I'm like, do you speak English? And she said, yeah, barely, just, but, and so like every day after class, I go have a beer with her, and she would bartend, and I would tell her about my day. And but yeah, so all right, so yeah, but that's why I learned to do it, and it was, and I never would have had that opportunity, without that grant. And it fed my students, that whole process. And okay, so all right, how did we get from puppets from Weston?
Because we were talking about Dennis and the Weston, and so we were like, how did you build, like, because you're starting to like the skills, and then how you end up getting a show there, even like, because you're not going to apply, but we know you're not applying.
I'm like, done. I'm fine, whatever. So I apply, and that's why the Czech story. Okay, so being Jewish, and I mean, I'm a cultural Jew. I always say like Jew light. We keep kosher. My family does Shabbos. We do the high holidays, but I'm pretty I don't speak Hebrew, didn't have a bat mitzvah, any of this stuff. Okay. So I read this story about during the Holocaust that the Czech in Prague, in Prague, the puppeteers would make fun of the Nazis in their puppet shows, and the Nazis couldn't speak Czech, so they didn't know that's what was happening. So it was this kind of radical puppetry, this activism, this, resistance. In such a playful, fun way. Well, eventually the Nazis figured it out. They arrested 100 puppeteers and their puppets, put them in the concentration camp, murdered them all, except for one puppeteer that escaped, and he's one of the most famous Czech puppeteers, to this day. And I'm like, that's the story I want to tell.
Wow.
I want to tell that story.
Yeah.
And that's what I applied to do. And I think the other thing was, and Dennis and I have talked about this, Total Love Fest, that I wasn't ready to have that show. There. I didn't have a why. I loved the work I was making, but this was it was the most difficult body of work I ever made, super hard to get started, questioned everything. I hardly question anything.
You just do.
I just do. Yeah. I questioned everything. I talked to, but okay. So meanwhile, I get the show, COVID happens. It's pushed back. And then I totally changed my mind. I'm like, I can't tell that story. It's not my story. I'm a storyteller about me and my life and my relationships and that. My dad grew up in a farm in Kentucky, which is what this show is about. And he was bullied every day coming home from school because he was Jewish. And my family, immigrated from Russia, and how difficult that was. Oh, and all the anti-Semitism that has come, it's always been there, but it has surfaced like beyond. It's so ugly. And I felt like I had to tell a story. It was my job to tell a story that was meaningful and important and difficult. And I have become more politically involved. You met Reggie Harris. I'm hosting a fundraiser for him for council. I'm part of the board of the Human Rights Campaign. I help with Planned Parenthood. But this kind of evolved, just over the last like so many years. Was seeing things go in a way that I do not like and don't agree with. And but the Jewish story is not really told very much. And I remember seeing on the news after the Capitol that there were these two men standing there, and one of them had a Camp Auschwitz shirt on, and the other one had the letters that meant 6 million was not enough. Front and center. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. And I'm like, why is nobody talking? But we're talking about a
Right.
lot of things that are
Because
bad.
do people think, like, was the perception that, oh, we're past this, like everyone understands it was horrific, so we're not going to talk about it anymore,
Right.
right?
I
But
think
then, like,
that's true.
that's so dangerous to hold that belief about any atrocity.
Yep. Yep. You're so right, Rhonda. It's so, and I don't feel like, I think I'm like super smart in some things, more like life stuff than I am
Mhm.
like book stuff. And
Mhm.
I was super worried too. I knew this is what I had to do. I saw
Yeah.
those shirts. I know my dad's history. I know my mom's. I'm like, I know this is what I have to do, but I'm not that smart to do this. Like
Like,
I
you
was,
felt like, how can I it like, if somebody presses you on a conversation around it, like, do I know enough to be able to, like, support and validate that I am worthy or educated enough to do this or knowledgeable enough to do this? Is
exactly.
it like that? Yeah.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get it wrong, you know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I fell asleep during Hebrew school. I don't pay attention. Everything to me is immediate and tactile. And oh, my little sister, that she I always thought I was an old soul. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm cool and I'm an artist. I'm an old soul. And my little sister who passed away,
Mm.
beautiful, beautiful person, but she's like light on her feet, all the things. And we went and got our numerology done, or tarot cards. We would do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like a really old soul, and they're like, oh, no, 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 you're all about, you're just starting out, my friend. You're all about the earthly delights, you're all about that. You got lots of many, many more lives to come through. And Kim gets like, like she's like a major old soul, and
Oh god.
I'm like, oh, really? Come on.
Really? Come on. And again, it's like, again, Pam, you're not these other things. You just are gonna have to be you.
I
Like,
know.
you're gonna
Oh my gosh, I'm 61 years old and I still have to learn that lesson. So all y'all out there listening on this podcast, do not wait. Just be you.
just be you. Just be you throughout every circumstance. Oh my
That's
god.
so funny. That's so true. But okay, so I know I'm doing this.
Yes.
Kind of, I like a title. Like
Yes.
some artists, their title comes later. Some people
Yeah.
are untitled. I'm like, I live for the title, and I
Yeah.
want it to be catchy and funny
Yeah.
and question. So I had
Yeah.
this Uncle Gershon.
Yep.
Why it's called, I think my Uncle Gershon was a golem.
Yes.
Gollum's a mystical character, and I love like scary movies and all
Yes.
that stuff. So the golem was made in the 16th century out of clay,
Mhm.
and it was done by a rabbi to protect the Jews.
Mm.
And eventually it turned on them and all that stuff. But we think that that's pretty much where Frankenstein came from, and vampires and zombies, all
Interesting.
from the golem. And my Uncle Gershon, who loved my older sister Andrea, remember the one that
Yep.
got the good part of,
Yep. Yep.
crack,
All the good
all
qual
the good stuff.
all the idealized. Yep.
Yeah, she's
Mhm.
that one. He would bring her like these big talking dolls, and I would get nothing. And I mean, but I loved him. I was like, oh my God, Uncle Gershon's coming. He was
Yeah.
loud and obnoxious and smoked a cigar, and he was larger than life. And
Mm.
I just like was like, oh my gosh, who is this? In my very quiet family, we're
Yeah.
all,
Right.
and actually, my sister would tell me that I was adopted, and until recently, I just realized that, oh, no, 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 I'm just like Uncle Gershon. So
Yes. As
I'm
you're
not
describing,
adopted.
I'm like, "You're Uncle Gershon." Like, you're
I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not adopted.
No, there's
There's only
lineage, all right?
there's only 3 baby pictures of me, I know, as a second child, middle child. So okay, so I knew this is what it was. And
Yeah.
Uncle Christian was kind of like, he was larger than life. I
Yep.
felt protected, all the things. I made up, because we're artists and we're allowed to make shit up.
Yeah.
Made up the fact that he gave me a stuffed bunny rabbit when he gave Andrea, because I like making these
You
big bunnies.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, "I'm making the bunny and it was for me, okay?"
Yeah, yeah, I'm like, this just has to fall into the narrative somewhere. Totally lied. But so I just started this whole idea of going through the fun house. It's the fun house of anti-Semitism, I call it.
Yes.
And so you walk in again, like that beautiful face my friend Kelly painted for me.
Mhm.
I knew what I wanted.
Yep.
I'm not a very I'm a good painter, but not like that. And I
Yeah.
knew that's what it needed.
Yeah.
So I hired Kelly to paint the face for me.
Yeah.
The bunnies were almost like bunny golem guards within the
Yeah.
space. And the Weston, this is at the West End. I
Yeah,
finally got to
you got
go.
there.
Yay! And so they built out the space. Craig designed it. They built the
Mm,
space out. So that
mm.
mouth, like, well, you saw
Yeah,
when you
I saw it. Yeah, because you want
totally
everything
different.
fits in, like it's a transformed space. Like
Yes,
you are in your experience.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And again, it's like what you were saying, kind of, and I like this, that like the kind of the gift I give back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
you get to interact, you get to be part of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
more festive, more alive, more important when you're there,
Yes.
all that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you walk in, and then there's the story of my mom's family, that like you picture when you see people immigrating from Russia, you
Mm-hmm.
know, pre World War II.
Mm-hmm.
He was a wheelwright for the Tsar of Russia, and
Mm-hmm.
so he joined the wrong army.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they had to leave in a hurry. And so but the only thing they could bring is a silver spoon.
Mm.
I worked with a friend of mine that's a fashion designer, Rosie, that you
Yep.
also.
Oh yeah, I met Rosie. Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And she made those jackets for me, and
Yeah.
then I spoons in them. Somebody else helped me with the storytelling on it. And then so you move through the space, and you're moving through my family history, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then as I was doing this, there's the automata, which Craig taught himself how to do with the help of my Czech puppeteer teachers online. They
Amazing.
taught. I know, I know. So there's the story of my dad growing up on a farm. They had a two-headed cow. So there's all these two-headed cows. And then you move my dad runs, and the three
Mm-hmm.
bad boys run after him.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also this Appalachian storytelling thing called a cranky, which
Mm.
is it's like you storytell through like a what do you call it? Like a scroll.
Yeah,
Um,
because like the
yeah,
background, right? Like
yeah,
moved like that in a circular
yeah.
way.
And
Yeah.
Craig figured out how to do
Wow.
two opposing things at the same time. I know, I know. Yeah, he's my secret weapon. But
It's amazing. I'm just kind of like, I wondered about that piece. I was like, who made this and how? And like and then it was so wonderful to work the piece, and like you're having fun working the piece that is about something really challenging and
right,
scary and sad, but you're having fun while you're doing
doing
it's
it.
this like, and it's that wonderful thing of holding like two opposing things, feelings, experiences at the same time. Like, so you're
Right.
both having play and fun while thinking about something that is sad, and like both are true. Both are
But
true.
they're true.
Yeah.
And I think, Rhonda, I think like that was the hard part for me.
Yeah.
I'm not that person. I
Yeah.
fun art. I make silly art. I make
Yes.
playful. I don't tell hard stories. I don't watch sad movies.
Yeah.
I don't watch sad plays. I want to be entertained. I want to have fun. I want to,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want the hard stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
for me to deal with the hard stuff and still keep my joy,
Mm-hmm.
which was the gift my dad gave me
Mm.
in telling the story that so these boys were mean to him. They beat him up every day after school. His teacher would let him leave early to get a head start, but that
Oh.
was all the intervention that he got.
Mm.
He goes to college, Georgetown University in Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
for an agriculture degree, and one of these bad boys was in his class.
Uh,
And my dad was a little more cultured, didn't have like a Kentucky accent,
mm-hmm.
and this boy did. And kids were really relentlessly mean to this kid.
Mm.
And my dad championed him, and he became
Wow.
a friend. And I thought, talk about resilience and talk about forgiveness and talk,
Graciousness and just
graciousness.
and like wanting an experience to be better for someone else than it was for
As for
yourself.
him. Yeah. And it's, that to me that was the most powerful takeaway, that, okay, I can talk about this really tough subject and still keep my joy,
Yeah.
because that's what my dad did.
Yeah.
And so that's that room, that's the farmhouse room.
Yeah.
And my friend Carla, she painted those beautiful tobacco leaves. They had a tobacco farm with a two-headed cow. And
The two-headed cow is its own thing too.
oh my gosh, so funny. Like there's a museum that had a show in for NSEEK as well.
Mhm.
And actually everybody should know that's how we met.
Yes, that is
NSEEK.
how we
And we're
met, is through
talking
our
about it a lot.
that's right, it's through our board service for Sika.
And but they actually have a two-headed cow there,
Oh,
that they, stuffed one or whatever to tax.
taxidermied it.
Yeah. And my friends were like, Pam, I bet that's your cow. I bet that's your dad's cow. And I'm like, Dad, what happened to that cow? He goes, I don't know. I go, well, did you call a vet? Did somebody come pick it up? He goes, nah, it died. We just threw it in the holler. And I guess other animals ate it or something. And
It
I'm
went
like,
back to
oh,
the earth the way all things
yeah,
do.
yeah. I'm like, well, that is not the romantic story I was looking for, but
I
okay,
wanted
that's
it to
not
be
our
the
cow.
taxidermied one over here, all right? Like, could you make it that?
I know. Like, yeah, no. So, okay, so all right, so I'm
Life
going.
is always less romantic than we want it to
It
be in
always
some
is,
ways,
isn't it?
right?
I
Like,
know, I know, I know. We can embellish it, and I can lie about a bunny, but yeah, you can't.
yeah, the cow ended up in the holler.
Like, nope, that's gone. So, okay, so here we go, talking about all this, and
Yeah,
then I had this idea of these horrific anti-Semitic images
yeah,
that I wanted. Um, I wanted a call to action.
yeah,
Like I think that, and I think that's also because of a lot of the advocacy things I do and
yep.
things to just tell people and to yell at them and say, this is bad, you shouldn't do this.
Hmm.
It's not enough.
No.
Like you have to have a call to action. Like,
Hmm.
this is bad, we shouldn't do it. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
You know?
People feel really helpless, I think.
Yeah.
Like they can tell something is wrong, but they don't know what to do with that feeling and that knowledge of something's wrong. Some people do, totally. But I think there's a huge swath of people that they're inactive because they don't know what to do, or they have the same thoughts you did of like, oh, I need to know more in order to be able to speak or say something
Right.
about this. Like I do that to myself a lot. And I'm like, but you know what you believe. So
Right.
why are you questioning that? Like, cause you know, you believe this and you
Yeah.
know it to be, whatever. So the call to action, or it's also another way you're teaching, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
another form of
Yeah.
teaching too, an
Yeah.
extension.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I had to learn,
Yeah.
in order to create the work, and like I want to make sure that, and then too, I think, and this is also growing up, going to school when I did, like your artist statement should not have to tell everything.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in an art school time where if your art doesn't speak for itself, then it's not, then your
You're
art's
not
not,
good enough. It's
you're
not
not good.
there. Yeah.
And I like this kind of movement of, words and text and talking and things like that.
Mhm.
But I also like the mystery of it, or
Yeah.
the thing. But
Yeah.
I was dealing with so many things that most people don't know anything about.
Yeah.
I had to articulate that in a way.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
gallery was great about letting me do it in my voice. In my,
Mhm.
I'm not a, I enjoy writing after a point. Like
Yeah.
it's difficult for me to get started, but they
Mhm.
let me speak in my voice instead of making it like this very,
Yeah.
art school kind of a thing, which was
Yep.
super helpful.
Yeah.
But I wanted these anti-Semitic images, and oh my gosh, COVID purchases, COVID, height of COVID purchase, speaking online and all the things. And I don't have TikTok, but I was enamored with what are those called? Tufting guns. Did you see
Oh,
those?
yes.
Okay,
Yes. I think I have
had to
one
have
in
one
like
of
my like shopping list for like studio
those.
equipment in the
Yeah,
future. Like I keep a
get it.
running list of like maybe I need that.
You might. They're pretty. I mean, I don't know how to use it, but I got one. I just had to have it. I'm like, I got to have this tufting gun. I want to do
Yeah.
what they're doing. I didn't have any idea why.
Yeah.
And so I wanted, I like the story of talking about, immigration, not being welcomed, resilience, all these things. But then I also kind of wanted to talk about a bigger picture of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And those two shirts, at the Capitol, those two horrific
Yep.
men in those awful shirts, um, kind of gave me this feeling like there's so much that is right in our face that nobody sees,
Yep.
with the way we treat people, and
Mhm.
for me with anti-Semitism.
Mhm.
So there's images throughout history that
Mhm.
have existed that are just terrible, and I
Mhm.
decided that I needed big ass rugs, like huge, huge,
Yeah, they're huge.
huge rugs, like 7 foot by 6 feet rugs made out of these.
Yes.
And Craig, again,
Mhm.
taught himself how to use Photoshop, how to project the images, how to simplify the images, and how to tuft.
Oh
So
my
he tufted those. I know, I know, I know. I'm
What
so
a great
I
collaborative partner.
know, I know, I know. Okay, so I had these ideas. I wanted
Yeah.
these terrible things, but then it felt wrong. I'm like, am
Yeah.
I honoring these things?
Mm.
showing, spending this much time and all the
Yeah.
things. A girlfriend of mine is a rabbi, was in town, and we were talking about it. And I did do a lot of research. I talked to the Skirball Museum in Cincinnati and HUC and rabbi friends and things like that, just to kind of make sure I was hitting
Yeah.
marks. And so I talked to Ellen, Rabbi Ellen, and I said, I have this idea. And she said, well, what are you going to do with them? Like, what is the purpose? Are you hanging them on the wall? I said, no, I want people to walk on them. Like, I want them to get beat up. I want people to walk over this hate. And she said, well, there's precedent with that within Judaism. The story of Queen Esther, where Queen Esther marries the king, the bad guy Haman wants to kill all the Jews. Queen Esther had to come forward and say, I'm Jewish, which she didn't know. And they saved the Jews. And, again, everybody eats. That's what we do. They tried to kill us. They didn't. Now we eat. So, so I turned Jingle Bell Yosemite, the puppet, into Queen Esther. And I turned Pickle the Bunny Boy, which is another puppet I made from online, into her uncle and Mordecai. And then those are the two puppets that are also on.
Yes.
And then they sing the song. Meanwhile, there's these groggers, they're noisemakers that you make every time Haman, the bad guy's name, is mentioned, you make noise. So you drown out hate, you're drowning it out. So Rabbi Ellen said that also people put Haman's name on the bottom of their shoe and they stomp on it.
Oh,
so I know.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, this is starting to kind of come together. And that's also where, I mean, I could work in a studio by myself. I could just read books or do that, but talking to people, like, that's how I, that's how I learn best.
Yes.
So that's what that turned into. That room turned into the Stomp Out Hate Room.
Yeah.
And that was your call to action.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not telling you to donate to the Anti-Defamation League. Please do.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I'm saying stomp out hate. Be proactive. Stand up for things you believe in. And it's so much fun to watch people be in that it's really playful room with these horrible images, and they grab a grogger and somebody's like making this go and the song is singing and they're hopping up and down on the carpets, and it's like, stomping out hate.
Yes.
And I feel like for me that I've loved all the work I've done. I continue to love the work I do, but that was the most powerful thing I think I've ever created, that installation body of work.
Yeah.
I worked with an animator, I worked with an engineer, I worked with painters, I worked with,
It was, I mean, it was an incredible experience, and hearing you talk about it just adds so much depth to the experience, even in like my memory of it. It's so interesting. Like, it's not just, it's changing the way I think about how I interacted in there, even post being in there. And like, I'm like moved. And so I'm so grateful that you make this work. And I know I sent you some text afterwards, and I was kind of like, when will this show travel or something? Like, this show needs to go somewhere else. Like, this is a powerful piece, and it can contribute to growth and change. And that's important to be shared elsewhere. I just still want to know if it's going to go, is it going to go anywhere else, or like, are you, it needs to, right? Like, just something. Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. Like, I am.
It's like they didn't teach you that in art school again.
No,
like, they just really left you hanging.
I know. I don't know. Right now, it's all living in my room, in my house. But I don't like. I thought so too. I felt like, I'm like this, and it's. I don't know, Rhonda. And maybe that's my next stage of, being an artist, is figuring that out. I've had shows outside of Cincinnati, but not very many. My whole world is in this sweet bubble of love and respect and kindness and celebration and elevation and all that for me. And hopefully I give that right back. But
you do.
I don't, I don't know how to get it out of my living room.
How did the activism, like, this is one of the ways that activism came into your art. Can you, like, when did that really change for you, or what kind of other things can you share about, like, how you had to think about it Or was it more you had to acknowledge that your work was going to move this way too, because your life was was building in that space too?
That's interesting. I I think so when I'm doing the work like at the Museum at the CAC
Hmm.
or at the art museum with for children centric, I my activism was of self. It's like love yourself, be yourself, celebrate
Hmm.
yourself. And that is like that's a way of activism,
Hmm.
right? It's
Hmm.
like, and it was like the positivity of who you are and what you have to offer. And
Hmm.
even when things don't feel really good, it's like you've got this and this. You don't have to be the beauty queen or the superhero. You can be you. And
Hmm.
that's an amazing thing. So I think for in on a beginning level, that's where it sort of started. And
Hmm.
then I think honestly, I was asked to chair. That's not true because I've done that before that. But I've chaired the gala, the dinner for the Human Rights Campaign in Cincinnati as an ally,
Hmm.
and um, not quite knowing that that I fit in that space.
Mm.
Is that who you want?
Yeah.
Is that and kind of I think because of the art and because of being able to bring people in a certain
Hmm.
way, I get
Hmm.
invited to those conversations.
Hmm.
And that to me, when I saw the power of that, I'm
Mm.
like, oh wow, okay.
Mm.
This
Mm.
and I don't want to super talk politically, but I went
Yeah.
to the first women's march
Hmm.
in DC, and I
Hmm.
remember seeing a sign that somebody posted, like we were on the bus. We took a bus from Cincinnati to DC, a
Hmm.
bunch of us, and somebody had a sign that said, "Thank you, Trump, for making me an activist."
Mm.
I did things before that. I helped
Yeah.
with Caracal. I helped lots of things, but I think this political part of mine and
Hmm.
has been activated.
Yeah.
And I know that I can help right here in my city,
Hmm.
and that's why hosting fundraisers, and I'm not the money person.
Hmm.
I am the connector,
Yeah.
and the person that brings people together and creates situations and opportunities for people like me that are
Yeah.
like, I want to do something, I want to help, I don't know how to help.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, here's how you help. You get your city government to
Hmm.
be equality driven and human
Yep.
driven and kindness driven. And Aftab even says he has a platform of joy. Like
Yeah.
that's what he wants. So I think I realized through those things that I have a voice, I have an opinion, I have a platform.
Hmm.
Like, I just got a lovely award for Women's History Month from our city
Hmm.
for the work I do, for
Hmm.
my art advocacy, for my teaching, for my all the things. And I feel like that was a big turning point for me, just knowing that through most of my life, everything was okay.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be better if things were a little better. It would be better if that wasn't. And then I just saw this rise of hate and this rise of inhumanity and all
Hmm.
of these things, and I'm like, I can't sit here anymore,
Yeah.
and honestly most of it doesn't personally affect me.
Right.
I'm the part of my age and my life where I could sit back,
Yep.
but I just refuse to do that. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is too important, and our world is too important, and being also like just this city where I can do these things
Yeah.
and I can be part of change and in a positive way. And
Mm.
I've done that through teaching art,
Mm.
giving kids, those outlier kids, those ones that don't fit in. When I was telling you that, being in the Pride Parade, and I'd have
Yeah.
my students at Harrison High School that couldn't come out and couldn't say anything, they would tell me they saw me at the parade.
Mm.
That was all they had to, and I'm going to get verklempt. But
Yeah.
it was like, that was in a very playful way, that was activism. You know,
Yes.
it's like, I'm here, I got you.
Yep. So where we left
But
off though is you were sharing about being in the parade, the pride parade, and your students being able
yeah,
to see you. And I was thinking about the connection though to those Czech puppeteers and the
yeah,
way that they, they knew they could communicate their support through their language and through
right.
their practice without being without endangering others, so to speak, to share that initially. And like that like I think of the different ways that people can show up in resistance or in active resistance to thing opposing forces, but also the way that people can show up to advocate for others. And it's not always being on the front line of being out there in the march, though sometimes it is, and other times it's through these different ways that we can show the support. So through your presence in the parade and through your work on the organizations, and that those what or hosting, and like when you were talking about hosting the events and not being the like wealthiest person to be able to do these things, like I that was something I feel like I saw my grandma do over and over again. Like she was not of any means of like monetary wealth like ever in her life, but she knew when she had a place to put her voice, and she did it. It was like in this tiny township in northern Wisconsin, and she used whatever place she could to make a difference, and that was small, but it was enough too, and that it did help change and shape the way things were done. um
Right.
and I think for people listening, just to remember that the way in which you can show up and support is different. It can be a whole breadth of things. Again, like going back to like the breadth of what we can do is
Mhm.
really wide, and it still is impactful. It doesn't have to be this thing that we maybe think it has to be in our head in order to do something different or to help make change.
Agree. Yeah, that's beautifully articulated. Absolutely. Because and I think sometimes we feel so helpless. Like, well, there's
Yes.
nothing I
Yeah.
well, it's like
I
there
live
is.
in the middle of the woods. What can I
Yeah,
do?
there is. You can do something,
Yeah. Yeah.
build awareness, do it. Just, take that first step. And
Yep.
yeah, I think I took that first step was a huge leap
Yeah.
for me. And now it's like all the things. But it's also interesting, I think too. I was able to um I was able to advocate for others, but not myself. So
Mm.
I
Say
was
more about
very
that. Yeah.
yeah, I was really active, like with Black Lives Matters in Cincinnati, and helping facilitate this large, beautiful table. We made these huge long table. This conversation, very active in the LGBTQ plus community.
Mhm.
Um, all of those things, I was able to advocate for others.
Mm.
And but never for me or Jewish community, or
Mhm.
never. So I think that is kind of that was hard, I think, for me.
Mhm.
And I'm not quite sure what the disconnect was. I've never really felt part of the Jewish community.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that was part of it, but
Mm.
um, I think that's the other thing. It's like maybe for people that are just trying to dip their toe in it or to figure
Mhm.
things out, maybe sometimes it is easier to help an other than you,
Yeah.
and and that can help filter into other ways.
Mhm. Well, and I also wonder if sometimes people don't know that they need to advocate for themselves. Like they might not even see the ways that they've been diminished or harmed or something too until they start working and helping other people. Like maybe
Right.
there's a certain reveal and learning that comes from that
Ah,
too, to realize like, oh, well, actually there's this thing that is like a way that I've experienced something, and then that then that becomes the opening for you too.
right. Yeah. I think that is exactly what happened for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
What do you plan to do? Like, do you have works you're working on right now, like next in pieces, or are you, I mean, you just helped like produce a massive conference that was so wonderful. And so like the ripples of that conference and people still sharing love and gratitude back is just amazing and remarkable. And like knowing you've just done that, you had that really big show at the Westin in the summer before. So
Right.
are you on an exhale at this moment? Are you working on something? What are you doing in the present?
Oh my gosh. Okay, such a good question. So I have a piece. So right after the Westin,
Hmm.
and right before NCCA conference in Cincinnati, I had an installation at the Contemporary Art Center
Hmm.
at the Museum
Hmm.
upstairs,
Hmm.
retail center, and it's another one that's fun house,
Mm.
and one has lots of. I'm very much inspired by Meow Wolf, that
What's
interactive.
Meow Wolf?
Oh no! Write this down. This
Okay,
is
okay.
okay. So there's a Meow Wolf, the original one's in Santa Fe. Then there's one in Denver,
Uh-huh.
was the second one, and then there's another one in Las Vegas, and they're interactive art installations that are buildings.
Oh.
And so the one you walk into, Santa Fe was the first one. You walk into it and you look like you're in a regular house, like a house from like the 1970s, and
Uh-huh.
you open the dishwasher, or not the dishwasher, the washing machine, and
Uh-huh.
you slide on a slide into a whole new world. You open the refrigerator, you walk through there, and you're into a whole nother world. And then there's all these stories, and it's an art collective. And the guy that wrote Game of Thrones, I think,
Uh-huh.
he helped fund them to do this. I think he lives in Santa Fe or something. So they
Okay.
were doing like quirky things all over, and then he's
Uh-huh.
like, helped fund them to make this monumental installation. Um, super. That is, I'm super inspired by that, and I
Yeah.
love the collaborative part and all that. So my piece at the Contemporary Art Center, which is named after me, Pam and Emma's House of Wonder, and there's another little part that's called Silly Scooter's Clubhouse, which little kids can go into and interact with. And so we did this whole sound element, and I worked with the same animator, and he did this really funny floating bunny thing, and
Hmm.
um, and then I had like little kids and friends and family that sang songs and things, and you push buttons.
Oh.
Wolf. So when you go look at Meow Wolf, you'll see what I mean.
Okay.
And and I have 3 puppets from Prague there on
Okay.
top, and you'll see those pictures
Okay.
in the pictures I sent you.
Yep.
But I wasn't able to carve them in time,
Mm.
so Merrick found a puppeteer that I sent my designs to. They carved them for me, sent them back, and my friend Carla and I painted those. Kelly helped again, the same artist that helped last time.
Yep.
I kind of have this core group of people, same
Yeah.
Craig, of course, and these great sound engineer guys. But okay, so I have this piece right when you walk in the CAC, and it's called "You Belong Here." Also,
Mm.
I've walked through it, all the things, and it's going to be there for 4 years.
Oh,
Which
wow.
the artists know, you put so much time and effort and money and love and sweat and tears and all that, and your shows are up for like 3 months maybe, or whatever. So this is 4 years, and I have some ideas of creating more elements. So maybe like every 6 months we add to it. But
Mm.
that's for me. That's not
Yeah.
anything that the museum is asking for. I just kind of want to do it. I no, I'm in a major, big, deep exhale. I am
Mm.
in a I don't know what I want to do as far as my art goes, and I don't know the story I want to tell. I just started doing something, which I know is a question that you had. Like, what do you do when you have nothing in your head to
Yeah.
make? Like you
Yeah.
have no,
Yeah.
and I am 100% motivated by a deadline.
Hmm.
I'm the artist that makes art because I love making art. I'm like, I need that pressure. I know
Yep.
I need that. I I would do terrible working from home. I
Hmm.
need to have a time clock. I need to know, I need that.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, I have to tell you this: I'm a lifeguard now because I have a synchronized swim team too. Started.
Pam.
I know it's nuts.
Pam.
I
It's
know we're like,
amazing, is what it is. I'm like, now I want a video piece of synchronized swimming with something in your shows.
okay, well, my friend Karen has a piece at the museum, and she has a swimming in her piece. So I'll share it with you. I'll send it to you. But because again, I love being with people, and
Yeah.
I was swimming laps and starting the synchronized swim team, and which started because of tequila, as you know.
Mm. You know.
They have a kids. It's inner city. They have a swim team for the kids. I'm like, you should have a grown up swim team. And I said, no, you should have a synchronized swim team. And about 6 months later, I get a phone call saying, hey, Pam, we're ready to start that synchronized swim team. Tell us. I'm like, wait, what? what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know how to synchronize swim. So um, there's a really good, our coach is a Ohio State, like, award-winning synchronized swimmer that, she's great. But so, okay, so anyway, so yeah, I'm a lifeguard because I was swimming laps.
Yep.
And again, and this is just because I struggle with my weight my entire life,
Mhm.
struggling most, like, a lot right now.
Mhm.
And and I'm also 61
Mhm.
and I am a lifeguard.
Mhm.
I did the thing, I made it happen. And but I'm talking about the time clock.
Yes,
So,
but it's still amazing. I'm just like, you're a lifeguard and you're doing this thing and you're so active in how you sort of like pursue the challenge that you have in front of you
yeah,
or the challenge that you're thinking you have. Like, but you don't really, I like in some ways I want to be like, Pam, no, there's none of these are barriers, but in your like, but we all do this. We make them things that hold us back, but the way that you attack them but it's not attacking. You're just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to like come to this. I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to do. Yeah.
that has been a challenge. When I was little, was called lazy all the time, and I think that's that old thing, right? I'm still
Yeah.
fighting.
Yeah.
And I have a super active husband. He's very athletic and all the things. And I want to do things. I want to,
Yeah.
you know, and so swimming those laps was
Yeah.
also through the height of COVID. I was very stressed out and very
Yeah.
unhappy, very scared going back to school and
Yeah.
teaching and all that. And it was a huge salvation for me to swim the
Yeah.
laps.
Yep.
But so I'm a lifeguard. I don't, it freaks me out. Like, people my age shouldn't be lifeguards because we understand that life is not forever. Where
Mhm.
those old kids, that are lifeguards
Yeah.
generally, they're
Yes.
like, "Well,"
Yeah.
and I see a kid jump off a diving board and their head is like this,
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh my God, that's somebody's baby, and
Yeah.
the 50 girls are like, whatever. But
I know I go to the pool in the summers with my kids and my kids all have swimming through school, which is
yeah.
amazing. But watching them, I'm always like, they're going off the board. And then one slipped one time on the board and it was a high dive. And I was like, oh, like, and then you're right. The
I
lifeguard was just sitting there like, yeah,
whatever.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, they're fine.
I don't do those anymore. I just do like the lap swims in the morning because they're old and they lived a good life. Yeah. And I'm like, whatever, they're fine. But okay, so time clock. So here
Yeah.
I go. I'm a lifeguard, new. I haven't had a time clock. I taught. We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't know how to do a time clock. I'm like looking all over the pool for like that old thing that like you
Yeah. That you
saw,
punch.
like that
Yeah.
thing.
Like I used to punch a card.
Yeah. I'm like, where is that thing? I'm like, I don't know where the time clock is. And they're like, it's on your phone. You just like an app on your phone. And I'm just like, oh my God, okay. Maybe it's time to just like let go of some of these things. But so anyway, yes, I need a time clock. I need to be somewhere. But I started just getting my bin out. And this is also, I don't have a studio. And that's why
Yeah.
when you ask for a photo, I work
Yeah.
from my couch
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah.
And or I have to rent a space if it's a large installation.
Yeah.
Queen City Clay, I've worked there a lot, in
Yeah.
spaces. But so I so it's all cleaned up from my last show.
Yeah.
And I had Craig bring all the stuff out, and I'm very messy and
Uh-huh.
very, and so now the house is already like in shambles. But I started just making something because I felt like, oh my God, I haven't really made anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, I very consciously, through the NCCA conference, a couple people had asked me to do some pieces or be part of something. And I felt like it was a conflict of interest for me to do
Mm.
that. Like,
Yeah.
I need to be, I think that's lovely,
Yeah.
but I need to be 100% on making this possible for other people.
Yeah.
And so I pretty much, after for probably like the last 6 months, I haven't really made, well, 3 months, which is a long time for me.
Yeah.
But um, so yeah, that is something that I always tell people, like, when you're in that, when you have a deadline, you don't have an option, you don't have the luxury of not creating,
Yeah.
or living in
Yeah.
that headspace.
Yep.
It's like you got to push it forward. And
Yep.
that's, um you know I like to host little parties and dinner parties, and I make these silly little clay cups to give
Uh-huh.
away. I give away
Uh-huh.
a lot. I love to do that.
Uh-huh.
um Young artists don't do that out
Yeah.
there. Listen,
Yeah.
value your work.
Value your work. Yep.
Value your work. But I like doing that, like a takeaway. And
Yeah.
so I will do tchotchkes, little things,
Yep.
just to kind of keep me moving.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm working on now, is just like tchotchkes.
Mm-hmm.
And the tchotchkes I think will add up into something else that I need to do.
Yeah.
But um yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything on the horizon, which is very unusual for me.
Yep. And it's a weird, like there's like kind of, I think three things I wanted to pull out of what you had just shared too. Like one, the idea that a studio, like not everyone has a space that is their studio that they go to, that they work from. Like so many people in even the first season of this podcast are like, they felt like, I think, ashamed. Sometimes like I work at the
Hmm.
couch or I work at this little
Hmm.
table, and it's like, but I think that's the most beautiful thing, is to let everyone know art can be made from anywhere. Like you do not
Anywhere.
have to have these ideal, dreamy studios that, you were like, I think about me, I'm like, I was shown some really beautiful studios by established artists. And I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I want that. I want that. And instead, like, my reality is I'm in my basement of my home, which is great too, and there is a set space, but like it can be anything. Like sometimes I have a bin out, like you're talking about having your bins out. I have a bin out in our room upstairs where I'm going to start braiding some Kleenex again into these rugs, and it's like that's where I'm going to work on that project, and then I'll work on something else down here, and just like we can
Right.
work in so many ways in so many places, and that is great to have flexibility in that, because then you don't, it's like one less boundary for yourself, like, oh, I can only make if,
Right.
or it's like I can make and here and there,
That.
and yeah, and how good that is for us. um and then, okay, there's something else in there too. Oh, I'm gonna have to go back. I'm blanking for a second because you're talking about what you make. Oh, deadlines. Oh, say no to
Oh,
opportunities. That's a hard thing sometimes, and it's a confident decision, I feel
yeah.
like, in some ways, to
Yeah.
say like, I'm going to say no. And it's also it's a abundance mindset, that there will be more that comes
Yeah.
even though I'm saying no to this, and
Yeah.
how that can be a really hard um transitional decision to make at different times,
It's
because if,
really,
yeah,
I agree. It's,
yeah,
yeah, I'm not good at it. I'm
yeah,
not. But I I think, just kind of like, like piggybacking on what you're saying, I think I, find excuses
yeah,
for things. And what you're saying about the studio, it's like, well, no, I can't do that. I don't have a studio. Or no, I
yeah,
can't. And you can,
yeah,
and you do,
yeah,
because you have to. Like, we
yeah,
have to. We
yeah.
can't. I have a wheel that I bought in high school, and
Hmm.
so high school, I graduated in '79.
Hmm.
Um, I bought that, and I still have that same potter's wheel. I don't.
Yep.
It's in my garage, and when it's nice out, I live in Cincinnati, so
Yep.
it's nice out 3 months out of the year, and I'll pull it out and I'll throw out in my back. I don't have a yard. We put astroturf down. We live in the
I
city,
love
so
AstroTurf.
it's like that's our backyard. But I'll just throw out there, and
Hmm.
it I could find a million excuses. I can.
Yeah.
And when I stopped teaching, that was also the beauty of where I taught. I had a studio.
Yeah.
I had a studio, and I had and I lovingly call them my minions, my
Hmm.
students,
Hmm.
that they're like, "What do you make, Miss Kravitz?" I would work alongside them,
Yeah.
and my principal and my superintendent very much valued that I was a professional showing artist. I was,
Yeah.
living the life I was wanting my students to understand. And so I had all that.
Yeah.
I had skills, I had kilns, I had students, I had space, I had all that.
Hmm.
And I don't have
Yeah.
that. I My work has gotten larger
Hmm.
and more layers since that. So
Hmm. And what it's also reminding me of is that there are so many ways to make.
yep,
You can, like, you're making and envisioning ideas, and then you're working with a team to help execute and create the, like, to actually manufacture, or not manufacture, but like produce those
right,
ideas. And that, making ideas takes time, like
right,
sitting with ourselves, making ideas, talking to people, having these conversations that you've been having with people to learn and inform yourself as you're building the idea. That is all acts of creation. And that is
right,
all acts of your creative practice. And being able to like identify and say, like, look, this is my creative practice. It is, making ideas takes time. It takes these kinds of conversations for me. And like, that's another kind of process. There's just so many ways we can make. I just think, like, again, that's it. The wider we are about that, the more art we're going to see that's going to change our world and change us and change people. And I don't know, that makes me excited.
Oh, no, me too, and it reminds me of when, like I'm having this visual artist mindset right now, but
Yes.
when I taught, a lot of times, also again, teaching in not a suburban or not an art centric high
Hmm.
school, the parents would come in for parent teacher conferences, and a lot of times they're like, I don't get why my kid is taking art, you know.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that, like,
Yep.
and I would tell them that, on a lot of different levels,
Hmm.
visual literacy, all that kind of stuff. I would talk all the fancy talk and all that.
Yeah.
But then I'd also say, we need to learn to create, and we need to keep that
Yeah.
creating thing. And it might not be visual arts. It might not be ceramics. They might not go home and buy a potter's wheel when they're in high school, but
Yeah.
they might work in the garden.
Yeah.
They might work on their cars. They might,
Yeah.
be bakers or whatever it is they do. That
Yeah.
I think the art, even though I like working with community and team, it's still mine.
Yeah.
And this belongs to me, and nobody can have it and nobody can take it away. And whatever your way of creating is,
Hmm.
I'm helping facilitate that by teaching you visual arts, but you're going to translate that into whatever it is that has nothing to do with your spouse if you have one, or your children if you have them, or
Yep.
your older adult, parents or whatever. This is yours.
Yeah.
And I think that's like part of the biggest gift I gave my students is
Yeah.
this feeling of I can create. It's going to be different, and it
Yep.
belongs to me.
Yeah.
And yeah. So
That's a beautiful, perfect gift. It really is. It really is. Like, we are all creating beings like that.
yeah.
Well, this was such a good transition into those last questions, because you
Okay.
addressed this, like,
Okay.
when I don't know what to create or make, what do you do? And so then my next question, though, is around your song. So I'm just actually going to pull us through those because we're at that point. So perfect. I asked people to share 5 songs that you could listen to on repeat in the studio or anytime. And so your songs were These Boots Were Made for Walkin' by Nancy Sinatra, Brick House by the Commodores. And then you're like Talk to the Animals by Rex Harrison, Dr. Dolittle, Love
Yeah.
Shack by the B-52s, and Ohio River, Jake Speed, and the Freddies. So I'm wondering if you can share how these songs contribute to your creative flow.
Sure. Okay. Um, and this is creativity, not just in the visual arts. This
Yeah,
is because I feel like
the wide world of it.
the wide, yeah, and the places I find myself. So when I was little, I said I was very unhappy little
Yep.
kid. Didn't have a lot of friends. My mom passed away. My dad remarried. I was just not in a good place,
Yeah.
and um, I only had one record. My older sister, oh god, there she comes again. Had
She's
all
like everywhere.
it's everywhere. Oh my god. But and I would go home, and every day after school I'd listen to Dr. Doolittle's Talk to the Animals.
Oh.
That was like my friend. He was my
Mm,
friend, and that was the way I felt.
mm,
I really liked stuffed animals, and I like animals. I'm vegetarian.
mhm,
Um but I, for some reason, that was like he was my friend, and
mm.
his whole way of, like, I felt like he was talking to animals because maybe he didn't have any friends either. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
So that was it was between listening to him and then watching Batman and
Yeah.
thinking that, Batman and Robin, if they
Yeah.
came to my show and tell, I'd be popular. So that's where that came in. That was
Mm,
just that was a lifeblood for me
mm,
for a while. And then, okay, so I always, the confidence I have in myself, sometimes, like, I will walk out the door, and
mhm,
even the way I dress, and
mhm,
Rhonda knows, and
mhm.
I wear tutus, I wear wigs, I wear these big colorful jackets, I'm got, boots up to my ass and all the things. But I, always like say to Craig, I'm like, is this too much? And his answer is like, it's never too much. Just do
Oh,
it. And
yes.
so it's like that confidence. Okay. So I used to go like so B-52s
Yep.
and the Commodores, both of them. I am
Mhm.
a terrible dancer. I love to dance. I take a dance class, the flash mob dance class, that you saw,
Mhm.
that you'll get to see. And and so I would go to, I never went to prom or anything like that, but I would go to bar mitzvahs and things like that, and I wouldn't dance because
Mm,
I didn't want to look stupid.
mm,
And I would sit there and let life pass me by. I
mm,
would. I would
mhm,
like, well, I'm not going to dance because, then I'm going to look stupid or whatever. And then I was, after my divorce, I was dating somebody and he wanted to dance. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to dance. And I was like, that moment, I think he even said it. I think he's like, you're just letting life pass you by
mm.
not nobody cares.
Nobody
And
cares.
so, and Brick House is always, that's just my theme song, my personal theme song. When I, that was my, like I came out to the party and that, you know, but I think in the B-52s, it's just like that song that everybody plays at
Yeah.
every bar, every wedding, everything, everything.
Yep.
And I dance. I am the first one on the dance floor, and I am
Yep.
the last one to get off it because I'm not letting life pass me by.
Yeah.
In a way that, and this is the way that I also feel about my art practice.
Mhm.
Um, and it's also the way I live my life.
Mm.
I am very comfortable in a space of not being good at something,
Mm.
which is, I don't feel that many people can do that. Like,
Yep.
I take tap dancing classes. I've been taking tap for about 5 years. She created the advanced beginner class for me because I can't get past the beginner class, and I think she just felt bad, so she couldn't push me on.
Yep.
But she created a whole new little section that I felt comfortable. I've been trying to take banjo for years. I'm terrible at it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible dancer. I still take dance class. I am okay in that space of
Yeah.
not being the best. And I think that's hard,
Yeah.
especially because I expect the best out of me,
Yep.
but being in that space. So those songs, I think, just
Mm.
kind of give me the right to be myself, like
Yeah.
we've talked about, and not be the best, but have the best time. And
Yes.
um so okay, so those are those three songs. And then what else did I tell you? One, two, three.
The Ohio River and these boots were made for walking though. Do they go
Oh,
in with the brick house and the no, because you talked about Talk to the Animals, Brick House, Love Shack. Yeah, so these boots are made for walking in Ohio River.
well, that is that is another thing I'm very bad at, which is karaoke, which we talked about. Um, After that high school class, I had a high school. I didn't get into the choir
Mhm.
because I could sing. I
Mhm.
got in because the choir teacher wanted a mural painted, and pretty much he told me, like, at concerts, because I had to be in concerts, just to lip sync it or whatever, or mouth it. And so I had this feeling that I'm a terrible singer, and
Mhm.
I'm awful at it. So doing karaoke, um, and again, everybody listening, I am an artist that is out there.
You
My,
are.
not on the wall. It
No.
is, but I'm, I dress up like my art. I interact with it. You interact with it. So I'm
Yep.
a very visible person. And but so going to karaoke, I would never do karaoke. Never do it. Never do it.
Yep.
Never do it. And the only song, because I have, for my voice inflection, is "These Boots Are Made for Walking," and it's like that's my karaoke song. and and I even asked the choir teacher at school, when I was teaching.
Yep.
I'm like, I only got one karaoke song. Everybody seems to want to go karaoke all the time. They expect me to sing. Do you have a song for me? And she's like, well, yeah, with your voice, these boots are made for walking. I'm like, okay, I have my repertoire of one, and that's it. But so I think, because again, I like being with people, I like being in the center, and
Yeah.
that influences my art. That I pull all
Yeah.
that back to art. So that's what that's about. And then the Ohio River, a song by Jake Speed and the Freddies. He's a Cincinnati musician. He's also an English teacher.
Mhm.
And Jake did the song for our Ensika video.
Yes. Yep.
And he plays banjo, and
Mhm.
he's adorable, and he's my friend, and I love that song. It speaks. I love my city. I love my region. that just super speaks to me, and
Mm,
that's just a song that I love. Because I I mostly work on the couch
yep.
or the space with other people, but usually I work on my couch
Hmm.
a lot. Even if I'm doing clay, if I'm doing small clay, I'll just sit. And I love sci-fi.
Hmm.
Before Netflix and all that, I just watch Sci-Fi Channel because again, I don't want to live in reality. I don't like sad
Yeah.
things, know. And but that's basically what I do in the studio. I have like sci-fi or something like that playing behind me, not necessarily
Oh,
music.
well, this next question is going to be so hard. Maybe because it's what brings you joy in your creative life?
Wow. Oh my God. Wait, do we have another hour?
I know.
This is hard because there's so much that brings me joy. And I don't want to do anything that is not joyful. Like who
Yeah.
wants to do that? Joy is the community that I've created around me.
Mm,
That is my biggest joy. I love the art I make. I love the things I get to do, but I love the joy that I get watching other people get to do the things I help them facilitate to do.
mhm.
It's the bigger picture for me.
Yeah.
It's it's a monumental I don't even know. Like it's just um I love it. And like a lot of times like my wig maker,
Yeah.
she's like doing her own stuff now, like major, major things. Um, a couple of my girlfriends that applied for NCICA and
Mhm.
got shows helped me a lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to watch them get the confidence to do that, to
Mhm.
apply
Mhm.
and to show and to feel
Mhm.
good about that.
Mhm.
Um honestly my joy is when I was okay, 57 more things, but when I first started making art, I was not confident,
Yeah.
and I would walk away when people come to my shows. Like,
Mm,
or if I had a piece in a show,
yeah.
I would walk away. I didn't want to hear what they had to say. I didn't
Mm,
need to hear anything bad.
yeah.
I didn't want to know. And
Yeah.
I just assumed it wasn't going to be good. So I didn't stay by. Now, my biggest joy is being front and center inside my work, welcoming people and getting excited. And
Yeah.
like, I'm part of my work.
Yes.
There's a line between my art and me.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like
Mhm.
I want to hear everything and it
Yeah.
better be good. But
Yeah, but you wanna be you're not it goes back to one of those dates. You're not letting life pass you by in any bit of
yeah,
what you're doing. You want to be there and present and a
yeah,
part of it. Not even like present isn't even enough. It's like it is embodied, it is integrated, it is yeah,
yeah,
you are there with it. You are it. Yeah.
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 Yep.
Ah, so many good things. Okay, the last one.
Oh, okay.
One last one.
All
My
right.
create your to finish the sentence. My
Okay.
creativity is
Mm, okay. Mm. It's my heart, it's my soul, it's my lifeblood, it's my North Star, it's my why. And it's the thing that gives me so much sense of self and purpose and possibilities and joy.
Mm,
And I think that's what my creativity is.
that brought tears to my eyes. It's beautiful.
Wow, okay.
Ah,
Well, thank
Pam,
you.
thank you. I'm so grateful to have had this time with you today because you and I, we have known each other through working together and through
Right.
working on a project together essentially. And to be able to know more about your story, your life, and your thoughts behind your work in your life like that. Thank you for that gift today.
Thank you. And you are my greatest gift from Bensica. And
Oh,
I just feel so lucky to have you in my world. It's so much richer and better and more beautiful because you're part of it. So
oh,
thank you.
thank you. Let's take inspiration from Pam and do two things. First, let's think about the people in our lives who have seen us along the way, those who have made space for us to express ourselves and learn about ourselves through modes that matched us. And second, let's take time to imagine who we might want to collaborate with on a future creative project or a future thing. Make a list of 3 people that you could reach out to and make something with, or talk about an idea with, etc. And maybe even contact one of those people and start that new idea. To learn more about Pam, check out her Instagram at Pam Kravetz and her soon-to-be-revealed new website, pamkravetz.com. If you enjoy the podcast, please share it and rate and review wherever you listen to your podcast. If you are new to the podcast, please be sure to check out Season 1 episodes wherever you listen. As always, thank you so much for joining me. Bye.